Okay then, Kim Kardashian, Lewis Hamilton's latest girlfriend. She's been slated in some sections of the media and by some sections of fans of Formula One for ignoring Martin Brundle at the Monaco Grand Prix. And you will have heard various things about it. I'm going to explain the true reason for that in this video, and I'm going to show you the evidence. It's going to be a long video, but if you are a fan of Kim Kardashian, or if you follow some of the channels which are pro Kim, please forward this video to them so that they can get a full understanding of it and they can then produce the content which people will engage with so that people can learn the real reason why Kim Kardashian ignored Martin Brundle. Now, why this is important is that Kim has 345 million followers on Instagram. That is huge. 108 million people, 108.7 million people were defrauded by the show of Formula One with what took place at Abu Dhabi 2021, where Lewis Hamilton was systematically robbed of his record-breaking 8th world title. Now, it is highly likely that Lewis Hamilton has explained the true circumstances behind that to his new girlfriend, and hence Kim will be aware of the role that Martin Brundle played within that fraud. I'm going to explain it to you in this video. Now, just for context, the way that mainstream media will report on this is going to be all like this. Now, this one is reported by Fox Sport. You can see this on YouTube. This is typically the manner in which us, the people, will have it explained to us what might have gone on at Monaco. So let's just watch this.
Well, good morning, guys. Big set of A-listers, really big names, the likes of Catherine Zeta-Jones, her husband, Michael Douglas, Olivia Wilde, Donald Trump Jr. was also cited there. But it was really Kim Kardashian and sister Khloe who stole the show, both stunning in cream. They were there to watch Lewis Hamilton race. Now, Kimmy K, for those who don't know at home, she's been dating Lewis Hamilton for about 6 months now. This was her first race event as his partner, so a lot of eyes on her. Now watch this. We have something to show you. F1 fans have really blown up for what they're calling a massive snub of TV royalty Martin Brundle. Now, he's a former race driver. He often goes around the track, up and down pit lane, trying to talk to celebrities. She completely brushed him off. Have a listen.
So this is Martin Brundle. If you don't know, if you're not a follower of Formula One, this is Martin Brundle. He was a Formula One driver and since retiring has become the voice of Formula One. The oracle, effectively. He's the presented expert, comes with the Formula One package. So Sky Sports have got the broadcasting rights and Martin comes with that effectively. What he is, he's a liar. But I'm going to show you that in this video. And he was integral to the fraudulent contrivance of Abu Dhabi 2021, which deprived Lewis Hamilton of a record-breaking championship.
Kim, Martin Brundle, Sky F1, how are you today? No, don't, you don't need to push me, mate. Yeah, normally people have a quick chat with...
I wonder if that guy that was just speaking in Kim's ear was saying, yeah, this is the guy that Lewis was talking about.
Are you enjoying F1? Yeah. Okay, Kim and Khloe, so we're not talking today.
Oh dear.
We're not talking today.
Yeah,
but this is the media explanation of it.
Really wasn't interested there, was she? F1 fans so upset by that, but it wouldn't be the Grand Prix, would it, without a little bit of drama, guys?
F1 fans are so upset by it because the majority of F1 fans do not know the truth about Abu Dhabi 2021. The reason is, every report you will hear in the media about Abu Dhabi 2021 complies with the narrative, and I'm going to demonstrate to you in this video the truth. And eventually, you will hear the truth globally. Eventually, you will, like many of these stories that appear in where the actual truth comes out many years after the event. This is one of those. Although I've been saying this truth for years, I've been saying it since almost immediately after the event. I took to Facebook for a year. Your content gets suppressed if you are exposing the truth. I've been on YouTube since 2022, the end of 2022, presenting this. But the mystery algorithm suppresses the truth, but it will come out. So this is what the media are saying about Kim's conduct.
That's very awkward.
It was the noise from the track, I think, in her defence. She couldn't hear him leaning
There's
over.
no way.
If you're going to go
Maybe
down to the
that was
straight pre-race, you'll know Martin Brundle's going to be there, 100%. She probably should have been briefed, I reckon.
Just having a great time. Thanks, Martin. See you later. Thanks, Izzy.
So they brush over it. They do not explain why it is that Kim Kardashian would have blanked Martin Brundle. Okay, so why would Kim Kardashian have blanked Martin Brundle? Well, in 2021, the season of Formula One was contrived so that the whole season's championship went down to the last race of the season in Abu Dhabi. Throughout that season, the sport had made many corrupt decisions, failing to penalise Max Verstappen for his driving infringements, to engineer a close title battle which took the championship down to the last race of the season. And then they build this last race as the championship decider in the desert, a duel between the two championship rivals who are level on points. Okay, you couldn't make it up, but they did. And then they fixed the outcome of that race and Max Verstappen became the champion. That is what actually took place in 2021. Now, if you try to research that and look on the internet, you can go on to Google and type in the question, what was the controversy in 2021 F1? And it will be listed as being controversial. You can use the oracle of sources of information, Wikipedia, and about the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It will tell you what it was. The race decided both the drivers and constructors championship. Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing team and Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes-AMG Petronas team both entered the race on 369.5 points, with Verstappen clinching his maiden driver's title, whilst the Mercedes Petronas won a record-breaking 8th consecutive Constructors' Championship. Hamilton had led most of the race and appeared to be on course to win his 8th title. Verstappen overtook Hamilton on the final lap after a controversial safety car restart in the last moments of the race. The ensuing dispute stemmed from race director Michael Massey's handling of the safety car, which was seen by some as inconsistent with usual race procedure and sparked a wide debate on whether it was influenced by the closeness of the championship battle and the spectacle, as well as the human element of the decisions. Mercedes immediately protested the race result, and the race stewards heard the protest and dismissed it. Mercedes had the option to appeal the outcome to the FIA International Court of Appeal, but did not do so. The FIA governing authority of the sport subsequently conducted an inquiry into the race, confirming the race and the championship results. It concluded that the rules had been ambiguous and the safety car regulations required clarification. The FIA issued a press statement stating that the race director Michael Massey had acted in good faith and to the best of his knowledge given the difficult circumstances. The inquiry led to a clarification of the safety car regulations, communications between the teams and race control were limited, and the role of the race director was restructured, with Massey being replaced by 2 new people. This is the bullshit that appears on Wikipedia. Now, let me show you the truth, because there is a truth behind the safety car implications in Formula One. Formula One is a sport contested around a racetrack. Now, If a car crashes and is strewn on that racetrack, it is a clear hazard. You cannot have cars racing around a motor racing track at speeds of in excess of 200 miles an hour in places, and they come across an incident where there is a car that has crashed and remains there on track. That is clearly a huge safety concern, and the sport has to take measures to deal with that. And the way that they deal with it, they have various measures at their disposal to be able to deal with such an incident. One can be to wave yellow flags to warn the drivers that there is a hazard there on track, and the drivers have to respond by slowing down as they go through that section of track to not be racing one another until they've passed that and they enter a safe area of the track where they resume the race. However, that can only be used if it is a minor obstruction and the clear up operation is going to be very quick and nobody is going to be endangered by those passing cars throughout that clear up operation. So they don't use that for the more serious incidents. They then have an option of something called a virtual safety car, where they slow all of the competitors on the track down to a certain, they call it a delta. They all have to comply with this delta, so they're all slowed down uniformly and all have to keep rotating around that track, keeping the gaps maintained between themselves. So this makes it safer because everybody's travelling slower. The problem with that is the scene of the incident still has a race car on the track, still passing by it every few seconds as the next car comes round and the next car comes round. So there is still not a window of opportunity to get a vehicle, such as a crane, onto the track to remove that crashed car. So what they have then at their disposal is the safety car itself. And when they deploy the safety car, a car comes out onto track, and what it usually does, it will pick up the car that's leading the race, and then every car that is on the track behind the lead car stacks up behind that lead car. But it causes huge implications. All of the previously built up advantages between those competitors get wiped out by the deployment of that safety car to deal with a safety incident in that sport. It reinvigorates the race. It's like in a football match, you might be 3-0 up, but there's a safety car deployed, so the scores get set to 0-0. That's how they do it, okay? It's madness, but that is what they do. And the fans of the show have been conditioned to accept that as being normal, all right? But they're not told the implications of it to those cars that are involved in the race. And that is all part of the show. And now I'm going to give you an example of what this race director knew back in 2019. Remember, this is the 2021 Abu Dhabi fraud. The same race director, Michael Massey, was race director in 2019, 2020 and 2021, 3 full seasons. Prior to that, he was understudy to the deceased race director, Charlie Whiting. Now, let's go to the example. Now, you can go to the various other sources available on the internet. They'll all say the same thing. Just controversial. Just controversial. This is the Spanish Grand Prix of 2019. There's 3 other examples where exactly the same things happen, and multiple examples where the complete regulation is carried out. This is where over and above the regulation is carried out. This demonstrates the understanding of that race director, which Wikipedia claims he didn't have. What you're seeing on screen is a graphic saying race control. Lapped cars may now overtake. This is the identification of the cars that were lapped and the instruction for them to be released. And I'm going to show you the implications of why they need to be released. This is how they were able to identify them. Now, Martin Brundle will go on to say, which I'll evidence to you, is, you know what, even being able to identify the lapped cars is not as straightforward as you might think, says Martin. Well, they were able to do it back in 2019, Martin. And if you look at data view,
Certain depends.
here, well, it would normally say, have entered that yet? +1 lap. +1 lap. There you go. But these are also +1 lap. So do we go, have they started the unlapping procedure yet? Oh yeah, they must have already started it. I want graphics a little bit late. All we do is go back a little bit and we can see +1 lap, +1 lap, +1 lap. These ones which say +1 lap here, they're the ones that have been lapped. But Martin will tell the world that actually being able to identify them is not as easy as you might think. Now, what we'll do here, we'll show you what happens when an incident takes place in Formula One and they have to deploy the safety car, and the implications on those cars when they do so. And it'll teach you about the Spanish Grand Prix track, which this weekend Grand Prix is taking place at. So I'm just finding the actual start of the incident on here, and you'll see exactly what's going on. We'll get there. I'm a pro at making content. Let's play it from here.
First on to the soft compound tyre. We're expecting Hamilton to come in after we saw the state of his tyres, but they're pitting Bottas first. So looking now to where Charles Leclerc, Bottas first. So looking now to where...
So what you see here, this is what's called tracker view. And with tracker view, this is the layout of the track. This is the track in Barcelona. And this is the start-finish straight, this long straight here. And this takes you around the track. And the coloured dots on the track show you the locations of each of the cars on that track from their GPS monitoring system. Now, the leader of this race, as listed here, is Lewis Hamilton. Now, he is located here on track where I'm trying to wave my cursor. This greeny blue dot. Second is Valtteri Bottas, who has gone into the pits. The pit lane is this part here, where it's got rust. This part here is the pit lane, and the team's garages are there. So these dots disappear when they enter the pit lane and go into the pit lane for a tyre change. Third place in the race is Charles Leclerc, and third place, Charles Leclerc, is back here. So if you think about that, all the way, he'd have to go all the way down this start-finish straight, around turn 1, turn 3, turn 2, turn 3, all the way around here, turn 4. This is how far he is behind the lead car, Lewis Hamilton. This is how far third place is. That gap will all be closed up due to an incident. Now, what's going on here? At turn 2, we have Lando Norris, and he is having a fight on track with Lance Stroll. Let's hope I've got it in the right place.
Charles Leclerc, as he's just rounding the final...
The pink car, the pink dot of Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll is the son of billionaire Lawrence Stroll, who bought a Formula One team to enable his son to become a Formula One driver. It was called Racing Point. They traced the design of the Mercedes car, and then they became Aston Martin. They bought the name Aston Martin, so they're now the Aston Martin team. They traced the design of the Red Bull car. Never mind. So you've got the pink dot that's crashed off, but the dot will become stationary. Lando Norris, he crashes as well, goes onto this gravel on the outfield, and then pulls all the gravel onto the track.
Turn and making his way. Past our commentary box, Lando Norris has gone off. Lance Stroll has gone off with him in the racing points. And I wonder if this means a safety car.
I wonder if this means a safety car. Oh no, what's going to happen now? So let's just play this a bit further, because it
Norris
takes time.
has managed to get back out on the track. There's a lot of gravel as he goes right across the track there. Bottas is ahead of Leclerc, just to let you know, after that pit stop.
A virtual safety car or a full safety car will...
There we go. So look at the locations of the car. Now here, where is Lewis Hamilton? He's at turn 10. Second place, Valtteri Bottas, has come out of the pits, and he has emerged still ahead of third place Charles Leclerc, the red dot there. Bottas is just ahead of him. They're just about to enter turn 4. But on the track, there is a car that is behind Lewis Hamilton, the orange dot of Carlos Sainz. Now, on the track, Carlos Sainz is in 11th position, and he is behind Lewis Hamilton, meaning Lewis Hamilton, the leader, has lapped 11th place Carlos Sainz. 10th place Alex Albon is just here. So Sainz here is racing the blue dot of Albon here. This is the distance between those two cars. It could be that Sainz has just pitted, Albon needs to pit, and therefore Sainz will gain that position. These are the dynamics that can be taking place in each and every race. It could be that Sainz has just pitted onto fresher tyres that make him faster, and therefore he can close this gap down and perform an overtake. We are all aiming to get in the top 10 to achieve championship points. Everybody is still in this race. Just because the leader may have lapped you, that doesn't eliminate you from the race. You're still in the race. You are still trying to contest with Albon, with then Magnussen, with then Kvyat. So there's 3 cars there that are within striking distance of Sainz if he can chase them down and catch them and pass them. Ahead of them is Grosjean. These are all for World Championship points. Now, if they deploy the safety car will come out ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and then all of these cars will bunch up behind Hamilton, but Albon, Magnussen, Kvyat, Grosjean, they disappear off around the track and end up at the back of this snake of cars. So just because Lance Stroll and Norris have crashed over here, and the FIA, the governing body of the sport, has responded by deploying the safety car, what has happened here is that now Carlos Sainz, who is held back behind Lewis Hamilton, is now left almost a lap behind Albon, Magnussen, Kvyat and Grosjean, who get the chance of disappearing off around the track and joining this safety car snake. That produces asymmetric outcomes for each of these competitors. That's not allowed. You cannot allow an incident to affect the sporting chance of each of these competitors in a non-uniform way in that manner. So there is a mandatory regulation whereby once you deploy the safety car, you have to carry out this set of regulations. And that is, if there are no cars at a lap, the safety car has to remain on track at least until the leader is behind the safety car and all of the other cars are bunched up behind the leader. What that achieves is all the cars in the correct race order with all of the previously built up advantages between all of the cars wiped out. That is the restart condition. When the lead car has begun lapping the other cars in that race, the mandatory requirement is for those lapped cars to be released and to be afforded at least one further full lap of that safety car with which to try to make it around the track and fully catch the back of that pack to achieve a line of cars in the correct race order with all of the previously built up advantages wiped out between all competitors. That is the restart condition. Now, these voices of the show, these paid commentators, Martin Brundle and David Croft, will use this to excite the fans, to excite the children, to arouse the children of the show. Oh, safety car! What is going to happen now? Nobody knows, everybody! That's what they want to do. But it's very, very simple. What does happen is that teams often use this safety car period to pit their drivers and change them onto tyres to give them a chance. Because by doing so, when the cars are all slowed down under the safety car, they've got the chance of going into the pits, changing their tyres and coming back on track with less jeopardy of losing position to other competitors, because all of the other cars have been slowed right down. So you don't lose as much time to them as you would normally under racing conditions. So what you will see is a beehive of activity in the pit lane with drivers trying to go in and change their tyres and try and gain the advantage of being able to take advantage of effectively a pit stop that doesn't cost them as much race time. All right, so that's what you will see. But the regulation is quite clear because of the impact it has on these drivers. So I will play this through a little bit, but it is very it's very tedious. It's about 5 minutes long of tedium. But I'll then get to the unlapping procedure. So
give a cheap pit stop now to anybody.
Safety cars coming out, Martin.
So that plays into Hamilton's hands then, doesn't it?
So what you'll see now is, because the safety car has been announced, you'll see that these dots will decrease in speed. Well, they already have significantly. Right? We'll play this through a little bit.
Okay, Lando, do you have any damage? Do you have any damage?
I'm sorry, guys. I'm out.
Can you bring the car back? Can you bring the car back?
No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys.
You rather think then it might have been Lando Norris's fault, that incident, from the way he was speaking there.
So you can see these cars that were ahead of Lewis Hamilton. They've disappeared now because they've all gone into the pits to change tyres. They're using that opportunity.
But the safety car now deployed, and this is going to close the whole field up as through turn one when Lance Stroll and Lando...
And you can see there that the tracker, the GPS transponder has picked up Lewis Hamilton. They thought he was coming around there, and then they've realised he's gone to the pits. So you see he's gone into the pits. He'll disappear now.
Norris around the outside, and as he went into turn two, Lance Stroll's got the advantage. Norris was trying to squeeze through, and
Carlos Sainz, the orange dot there, didn't go into the pits by the looks of things. We'll wait and see what his GPS tracker does.
Yeah, he took out the Racing Point and himself.
I think Stroll probably thought he would yield, he'd give up on that, the McLaren behind him.
Hamilton has pitted, the race leader, and gets that, well, cheap pit stop, because he can...
So, what's actually happened here with Hamilton pitting? Sainz has unlapped himself relative to Hamilton. So we've got now, this car's ahead, Giovinazzi. I believe he might have been lapped twice. We'll see which car comes out behind Hamilton and where he sits in the race order.
Come in and not lose as much time in comparison to others who have just pitted. Verstappen, for instance, Vettel, for instance, Bottas, for instance.
So what we now have here is Lewis Hamilton, the leader. He will be picked up by the safety car. Behind Lewis Hamilton is Alex Albon in 11th position, as you can see here. Albon was ahead of Sainz. Albon pitted, Sainz didn't. Sainz is now here, the orange dot. Now, you'll see what happens to Sainz's orange dot, who is in 10th position. This is the blue dot of 11th place Albon.
Leclerc, of course, can now pit as well. But
we'll keep going forward in 10 second chunks.
Now. Teammate Sebastian Vettel.
Those tyres on lap. Was it until they... It is slow today, the safety car. He's trying to collect.
So what we've done now, Hamilton here is the lead car. Albon has caught him. And then we've got Hülkenberg in 12th, Ricciardo in 13th. Coming up is Perez in 14th. It would seem that Raikkonen in 15th is all the way back here, and Giovinazzi in 16th is all the way back here. Okay, so these back runners are interdispersed within that field of competitors. The orange dot of 10th place Carlos Sainz has disappeared into the pits. He's trying a pit stop to see if he can get out ahead of this and still disappear out and get around the track to still maintain his 10th position. We'll see what happens.
The field up,
yeah.
They're doing 60, 70 Ks around the corners.
So he's got a job to do to close the field up, Martin, but Hamilton's got a job to do in trying to keep temperature into his tyres. That's why he's so eager.
That's why he's hustling the safety car.
And this is the other thing. What they'll then go, oh, what's happening with the tyres? Going so slow is terrible for the tyres, kiddies. It's tyres. They've got to keep weaving around the track to keep the tyres. This is how they try and project it. Even though these cars do a warm-up lap at the start of a Grand Prix, and then they sit stationary on the grid for about 30 seconds, and they don't worry about the tyres then, do they?
Behind him, it might take a while to clear the gravel here to let...
So here's Sainz re-emerging from the pits after his pit stop. So this is 10th place Sainz coming out of the pits.
Yeah, the lapped cars passed as well.
Oh, we've got to let the lapped cars past as well, says Crofty.
That's why he's hustling the safety car.
Behind him, It might take a while to clear the gravel here, to let the lapped cars past as well. Ricardo, Perez, Hulkenberg, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi all a lap down.
Now remind Lewis he's got to stay within 10 car lengths of the safety car.
So it's easy to work out who's been lapped because you have the leader and the car that's directly behind the leader has been lapped, which means it's Albon. He's behind the leader. He's in 11th place. So 11th place downwards, the leader has lapped them. Quite simple, isn't it? Now, if we chunk this forward, we see what's going on here. Is that I'll do it a fair little bit, and you can gradually see that these dots are all bunching up into a snake of cars. Now, where's that orange dot of Sainz? He's now here at turn 13, so you can see he's really pulled away from that snake of cars. They can't be going at full race speed, so they're not doing it that quickly, but you'll eventually see Carlos Sainz will make it round to the back of the pack. Bit by bit, because the safety car holding all of these back is travelling faster than the rest of these cars, these eventually catch. So we'll keep going. We're getting there. So you have Hamilton here at the front of this snake of cars, and then you have the snake of cars, and it's almost fully bunched up with Sainz now being at the back. And what we have here is the leader. Behind him is 11th place Albon, and right at the back here, almost an entire lap ahead of Albon now, is Carlos Sainz in 10th. Now, prior to this incident, Albon was actually ahead of Sainz. They did differing pit stop strategies, and Sainz has enabled himself to leapfrog Albon's position, but now almost gain an entire lap on Albon. But teams know the rules and regulations, and you wouldn't risk losing a lap on somebody if you knew that was the case, would you? You know the procedures, you know what needs to happen. Let's see what happens.
The Australian Grand Prix. And Lance Stroll, not been a good weekend for him at all.
I think Stroll thought that he'd got him covered, he would yield, he'd back off. And for me, Norris thought he'd earned some space from where he'd positioned his car. It wasn't a...
So that's now a snake of cars. They've all pretty much bunched up. That is what the safety car achieves, but it's not the correct race order. What needs to happen is the clerk of the course needs to inspect around turn 2 and turn 3 where these two cars were, ensure that both cars are recovered out of the way so that other cars don't go careering off into those cars. That's clearly a safety hazard. And he has to inspect that the track has been swept so that there's no gravel on the track, a safety hazard. He has to check that if any barriers suffered any damage, if any of the cars went into the barriers, that they are also safe, fit for purpose, should another car depart the track there and crash into those barriers. Only when the clerk of the course has declared that track now safe can this unlapping procedure begin. And clearly he hasn't done that yet. So we'll chunk this forward a bit. So what we see go on is the safety car will just keep lapping around with these cars behind it. Now, is it about now that the order is given for the unlapping procedure to start? Now, when they get given the order, they get the remainder of the lap that they're on, plus one further lap of that safety car. That is the mandatory requirement.
Apologising, as you heard, to the team on the radio. I think feeling himself that it was his fault. Now the lapped cars may overtake. And there are 1, 2, 3. Yes, well counted.
Martin will go on to tell you that identifying that is not as easy as you think. But as I've demonstrated to you, it is, because we know that the car directly behind Lewis is Alex Albon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That will be reflected on data view as well. They'll all say +1 lap.
Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez,
So off they go. You'll see these coloured dots past the lead car.
Kimi Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi, George Russell, Robert Kubica can all now overtake. Now, whether they are going to be allowed to catch up to the back, I'm not quite sure.
This is the gaslighting of these paid commentators. They are paid to arouse the children, to excite the kiddies. Oh, this is Formula One. What's going to happen now, kiddies? Nobody knows. Will they let them do this? Will they let them do that? This is all of the gaslighting of the media surrounding the show, where every single example ever, since these were reintroduced for the start of the 2012 season, will be the same. And it is for a reason, but they don't tell you the reason. And there's one time where it's different, and that was a 2021 Abu Dhabi fraud, which is what I'm going to get to. But look what actually has to happen, and look what the race director actually knows.
Well, that's going to sort the restart order out nicely for us, isn't it? That they've elected to do that.
Well, this is why they brought this rule in. The lap cars can overtake just to get out of the way of...
Gaslighting, claiming it's to get out of the way of the race between the leaders. That's what they claim it is. No, they're all racing. They're all cars in this race, are all in this race, all trying to fight each other for World Championship points. That race matters to them all.
Of those on the lead lap fighting for position, so that the back markers don't get in the way of the restart.
There were only 3 cars on the lead lap at the Monaco Grand Prix where Kim Kardashian was. They did the unlapping procedure at the safety car situation, and then as they tried to restart that race, Charles Leclerc crashed, and they then red flagged that race and did a further unlapping procedure, which is also mandatory, yet those cars weren't interfering with any race between the leaders, because that's not its purpose. These are lies by these liars. So look at these dots all passing. The last of these dots is Robert Kubica. So as we know, 8 cars had to be released. Now, Robert Kubica was actually lapped twice, which is why you see a difference between why he's actually ahead on the track of Giovinazzi, but in the race order, he is actually 2 laps down. What they do not do is allow somebody to unlap themselves twice because of the time it would take. So it would seem that the teams accept the notion that if you are lapped twice, you will get 1 lap back, but not 2. That's why you see this disparity here between Kubica actually being ahead on this track here than Giovinazzi. But we'll count the dots. The last one, Giovinazzi, is passing Hamilton. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dots now past the leader. All 8 cars that were a lap down or more have been waved past and have passed the leader.
Whiting's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Concepts. It can get a bit frustrating on a very long lap sometimes.
So what you now have is Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, and you can read down this list and compare it here. You've then got Vettel, Leclerc, Gasly, Grosjean, Magnussen, Kvyat, Sainz. The top 10 running competitors in the correct race order, and then here's 11th that wants to be challenging 10th. Now, the wording of the regulation is that now the safety car will remain on track for 1 further lap to enable these release cars the opportunity of making it around that track to try and catch the back of this pack to restore the correct race order and sporting fairness to those release cars. Let's see what happens and listen to the commentary as well.
There they are, the 8 that were allowed through, and that's, it's going to give us a nice clean restart. It's not mandatory, it's not absolutely certain, depends on weather conditions and the stage of the race that you're at.
He's lying. It's not mandatory. It depends on the race conditions, the weather conditions, and the stage of the race. It's utter bollocks. It's mandatory because, Alex Albon has effectively lost a lap to Sainz, where previously the time gap between them was minimal, and yet you can't now leave him that lap down. Everybody else, Bottas was how many seconds behind Hamilton? 20, 30 seconds? That advantage that Hamilton had has all been wiped out. Bottas was how far ahead of Verstappen? All of these gaps between the top 10 have all been wiped out. You can't now say, well, but the gap between 10th and 11th hasn't been wiped out. In fact, that one's been extended to now a minute and a half. No, it is entirely mandatory. There is no wording, there is absolutely zero part of those regulations that say it's optional, that it's not mandatory. In fact, the International Sporting Code states that these regulations will never be applied in such a way as to deny a sporting contest, to actually harm the sport. It is very, very clear.
But it seemed a sensible decision right now, didn't it? Because that's energised this race beautifully.
That's energised the race beautifully for the kiddies.
It's the concept absolutely spot on. I'm with you. And you've said it many times over the years. It's a shame they can't just drop back rather than overtaking and going.
Again, we get this lie. It's a shame they can't just drop back. No, because what you've done then, if by dropping them back, you would drop Albon behind Sainz, and what, say now he's been lapped? Well, he wasn't lapped. You're now saying he's been lapped by Sainz. So, number one, he wasn't. You can't then claim, oh, let's claim that he wasn't lapped now. We're just putting him there. Well, he's actually done one less lap, and therefore use one less lap of fuel in his car, one less lap of tyre wear on his car. You completely skewed things. So you have to make the number of laps covered the same for both cars, the amount of fuel the same for both cars. It's an entirely flawed concept that they are trying to claim would be an alternative.
Round again, but until they sort out a way for the timing screens to update so that...
Yeah, because we just lose another lap or two, especially, as I say, on a long lap like Spa, for example, it gets a little bit tedious. But we'll take it for now. But if they drop to the back of the field, they're a lap down anyway.
See, garble, all bullshit, filling the airwaves. Oh, but on a long lap like Spa, it could be this. On a wet day in Belgium, it could be that. But on a short lap in Monaco, it could be. It's all bullshit, right? It's all bullshit. There's a simplicity, and that is the restart condition is achieving the correct race order with all of the previously built up advantages wiped out. Because by deploying that safety car, you've skewed the outcomes for all of those competitors. This is a regulation that achieves the restart condition, having interfered in that race by deploying the safety car.
And they can stay a lap down.
There's a gorgeous afternoon here in Barcelona, Martin. Sun's out.
They were a lap down, they can stay a lap down, but Albon wasn't a lap down relative to Sainz, was he? No. So you're talking absolute bollocks.
Blue skies, few wispy white clouds overhead, nice warm temperature in this middle part of May, but if you're talking temperature, tyres and brakes getting very cold on those cars now. And it's going to be so difficult for the drivers after quite a few laps behind this safety car to try and manage those temperatures, so they're in a position where the equipment can let them go and overtake.
Oh, the tyres, kiddies. What's going to happen on the restart because of the tyres? Excite the children.
Brake a bit later.
Yeah, they're designed and optimised, obviously, for braking at massively high speed, lots of energy, and they're not particularly good at safety car speed.
Absolutely.
And if they were, they'd fail very quickly in the Grand Prix.
They certainly would. Lewis Hamilton has led every single lap of this race so far. Mercedes with a 1-2 at the moment. If you haven't been with us all season, they've been 1-2 at the checkered flag in every single race this season, looking for a 5th consecutive one.
Now, what you should be observing is these 8 dots, these 8 cars that were released, are gradually catching the back of this safety car snake, restoring sporting fairness to all competitors. So what we should get is a bunch of cars in the correct race order, albeit Kubica is out of position because he is 2 laps down. But that is just an anomaly when we've got runners in the race which have been lapped twice.
To finish it with tie their best ever run in Formula One. They did it in 2014 and across 2015 and 2016 as well. Ferrari also managed 5 1-2 finishes in a row, the final 5 races of 2002, but it's under pressure now because the field are so close together.
Now, the mandatory requirement of the regulation has been met, which is the safety car will remain on track at least until, these lapped cars will be released, and then they will be afforded a further lap of the safety car with which to attempt to catch the back of the pack. Now you can see that they've not managed to do that yet. Now the race director has at his discretion 15.3 in those regulations, which is overriding authority over the use of that safety car on the grounds of safety and sporting fairness. So what he can elect to do is, by observing the situation, if sporting fairness has not been restored to these cars, if they're still cast adrift, he can keep that safety car on track to ensure that sporting fairness to these competitors has been restored. What does Michael Massey, race director, know, everybody? Let's have a look.
Verstappen's going to feel under pressure. 2 Ferraris behind him with DRS and their power down the straight.
Is the safety car coming in, and therefore does the race resume? Let's have a look.
This brings them all back into the fuel window, of course. 2 or 3 laps coasting behind the safety car sorts any fuel issues out, so they should be able to go for it. Safety car goes round again because we've got to wait for the lap runners to catch the pack.
Safety car goes around again because we've got to wait for the lapped runners to catch the pack. Oh, it's an optional thing. It's not mandatory. The regulations do suggest that. Will they let the lap runners through? I'm not sure it's mandatory. And if they do, how long will they? It's all gaslighting bollocks. But what you've just heard there is the truth.
Behind the safety car sorts any fuel issues out, so they should be able to go for it. Safety car goes round again because we've got to wait for the lap runners to catch the pack.
Yeah.
I think as long as you let them go by half a lap, you could get on with it. But anyway, got another lap now, but I think Verstappen will be the man.
What does the race director know? What does Michael Massey know? And this isn't the only race that he does it at. He does it at Brazil in 2019. He does it at Sakir in 2020. He does it at Eiffel 2020. There's numerous other Grand Prix where he performs his procedure and those released cars have caught the back of the pack after just 1 full lap of the safety car, because he was able to release them significantly before the end of the lap that they were released on, giving them probably a lap and a half to catch, which was enough for them to catch. This is what he knows.
Under pressure from the Ferraris.
But don't forget the 2 Ferraris as well, Martin, could also be under pressure from Pierre Gasly behind them. Gasly's on the soft compound tyre. The 2 Ferraris are on the mediums. Could Gasly, with those racier, grippier tyres, be putting a challenge into the Ferraris as well? This could be a mega restart when we finally get it going. Karun, down to you. Safety cars coming in at the end of this lap.
Okay, then just a quick one. Martin, you're talking about how the safety car did appear to be going a bit slow. I tell you what, I watched that gaggle of cars, the lapped ones, come past me, the likes of Albon, Hulkenberg and so on. They were flying past because obviously they had to catch the lap up. Sainz, you'd be a little, if you were Sainz, you'd be a bit nervous because Albon's going to ride right behind you with a hot set of tyres. But yeah, battle up at the front, Crofty, all to play for.
We have seen 3 cars try and emerge into turn 1, side by side by side. Hamilton got the better of that. Vettel lost.
So what have we achieved now? We've achieved a snake of cars in the correct race order, with all of the previously built up advantages between all cars wiped out. The interjection in that race has affected all of those cars now uniformly. That is the regulation. That is the purpose of doing that procedure. Without that procedure, what that does is what we saw was that it leaves the 11th place Albon. He ends up losing a lap on 10th. You can't allow that to happen. Hence, we have that regulation. And we can play this forward. And
out what's going to happen this time around, I wonder.
And a new regulation for this year, you don't overtake at the first safety car line. You can't overtake until you cross the line, as they call it, capital L, which is the start line. Yeah. Basically, you cannot overtake until way now. It's Lewis.
So what that means is the safety car will come in, and then these cars will get going, but they can't overtake each other until they cross this start-finish line. Which means if the safety car comes in on the last lap, at the end of the last lap of the Grand Prix, they cross the line on the end of the last lap of the Grand Prix, and the guy that's leading this snake of cars is the winner because nobody's allowed to overtake him. If this was the last lap now and the safety car just peeled off into the pits, but the rest of the cars had to come around this track to cross the line to complete that last lap, nobody's allowed to overtake Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton wins that race.
That's in charge, and he can bolt just when he likes, but he's got to give the safety car enough time to get out of the road.
So when the safety car goes into the lane, Lewis Hamilton.
So that was Spain 2019. That was the commentary of Martin Brundle and David Croft, lying to the children. That was the race director, Michael Massey, performing the correct unlapping procedure and using his overriding authority of 15.3 to keep that safety car on track for an additional lap beyond the mandatory lap, as the regulations dictate, achieving the sporting requirement of sporting fairness to each of those competitors. Now, in Abu Dhabi 2021, they will claim that there was confusion, okay? They will claim that it was all a bit muddled. Nobody knew the regulations. Nobody really knows what they are. Okay? It was a sport-wide contrivance. What they don't tell you is that that crash was manufactured and that all of the teams were in on the notion of constructing a last lap shootout to excite the kiddies. They attracted a record audience to a Grand Prix. Because they manufactured that season's championship to be settled with a decider at the last race of the season, that attracted a record audience. We'd just come out of COVID. Formula One as a sport was one of the first sports to resume, and hence it was able to attract a much bigger audience than it otherwise would, especially with this manufactured two-way title battle which was going down to the line. And they manufactured it to be settled on the last lap of the last Grand Prix of the season. And they broke the rules to do so. And they broke the rules knowing full well that Max Verstappen was significantly advantaged going into that illegal last lap. And Martin Brundle and David Croft were the commentary team that were lying to the global watching audience to convince them of the authenticity of what was unfolding before our eyes. All of those teams were complicit. The TV broadcasters, F1 TV, who are in charge of all the camera angles, all of the interjections of audio, creating the narrative by what it is they show us and what they lead us to believe is taking place. The contracted commentators of the worldwide audience, not a single one of them could point out the truth. None of the teams affected submitted any form of protest to the FIA, the governing body, apart from Mercedes, who fraudulently pretended that's what they were doing, turned up to the track with a so-called barrister. The appeal system was entirely fraudulent. Just a facade to convince the layman that if a barrister can't overturn this, nobody can. This one's an expert barrister, the one that represents Manchester City in getting them off all of their financial fair play infringements with the Premier League. Yes, and if he can't do it, the super barrister, nobody can. It's all a fraud. Now, I will show you exactly what is going on there. I will show you that Nicholas Latifi, the guy that crashed, was instructed that it had to be this lap. I will show you how he crashed, which would be the way to crash your car if you were going around turn 14 that way. Let's have a look. Now, this is the show itself, the inside story, Max's miracle win in Abu Dhabi. Max's miracle win. Inside story of the epic conclusion to the 2021 Formula One season. This is how the show sells itself. It's all a fraud. So we'll click onto that, but I'm going to pause it because I'm going to find the bit that we need to go to. Now, this is the driver who crashed on purpose. Canada's Nicholas Latifi. You'll see here, this is his steering wheel display. Number 4 there is the gear that he has selected to go around this corner in. Now, if you just listen to the engine note, you'll get a sense of his accelerator input, how he accelerates going around this corner here, which is going to be turn 14 on the racetrack. So have a listen to this. So you can hear that revs build, okay? And we'll just do that again so you get a sense for it. Okay, so as you corner, as you drive, you enter the corner and you then try and accelerate as you're coming out of the corner, but you do so in a manner where the revs build. You don't just dump the throttle. So as we continue around the track, and he did it that way for each of the previous 5 laps that I've checked.
Has to be this lap, mate.
And then his race engineer tells him that it has to be this lap, mate. And let's hear it again.
Has to be this lap, mate. Give everything.
Has to be this lap, mate. Give it everything. So, what has to be this lap? We'll chunk this forward a bit. What we see is a staged little drama here between Nicholas Latifi and Ralf Schumacher. Now, there are various ties here back to Toto Wolff. You see, Toto Wolff, the kingpin of Mercedes, he supplies engines to the Williams team, who have already retired one of their cars. George Russell was driving for them at the time. So that added the jeopardy. Oh, there's a car with a Mercedes engine that's retired. Will Lewis's engine be able to sustain the race distance? What jeopardy? Keep people on the edge of their seats. Toto supplies engines to the McLaren team. The McLaren team mysteriously had a slow puncture for Lando Norris's car, even though Lando Norris's race engineer told him to push as hard as he can this lap. You've got a slow puncture, lad. You don't want to be pushing really hard if your car's in a dangerous condition. So was that the truth? Oh, Lando! Is there going to be another tyre twist in this race, Crofty? Says Ted Kravitz in the pits, adding to the narrative as he cuts across Christian Horner being interviewed, who cries for help from the racing gods as part of the script. Anyway, Mick Schumacher's also linked with Toto Wolff. Mick Schumacher got a job as the Mercedes team reserve team driver. It's all linked. Don't you worry, your little heads. So this is the choreographed, he ran me off the track, the dirty tyres. Okay, all dirty tyres now, less grip. This is the excuse for him crashing. He forced me off though, but we might need to see what gear he selects.
Copy. Copy.
Give it everything. Has to be this lap. So he's gone round now in third gear. Anybody that drives a rear-wheel drive car knows that if you drop a gear and dump the throttle, you are likely to induce wheel spin of your rear wheels, and if you've got a steering angle on, you're likely to kick the back end of your car out. You'd think as a professional driver you'd know that. Now listen to the engine tone as we come around this corner. Does he feed the throttle in or does he dump the throttle? What you heard was him putting it on the rev limiter, dumping the throttle. In third gear.
Copy. Copy.
So, that is how you crash that sort of car. Exactly the way he did it. He's now caused a crash. The front wing of his car's come off. He's still in third gear, but you've got anti-stall, so his engine is still running. He has the option of selecting neutral, potentially selecting reverse, moving backwards, and turning his wheels because he's not far away from the entrance of the pit lane to be able to drive his car off the track, get himself out of the way. Therefore, this incident may not necessarily need a safety car. But what does he do? Let's have a look.
You okay? You okay, mate? Copy.
Just turns it off. Makes no attempt whatsoever to see if his car is able to move. That's not authentic.
Okay. So remember, assume the car isn't safe. You have to switch off fully the car.
Now you see, what happened here was this brake caught fire and it prolonged the clear-up operation. These marshals had to deploy a fire extinguisher to put the fire out. That prolonged the clear-up operation. That put fire extinguisher powder onto the track, requiring that to be swept. And because of that, it completely ruined their plan. It completely ruined their plan to be able to legally set up this last lap shootout, which this show contrived. So, let's go to track of you and show you.
Gonna need.
You will see here.
Because they felt they've been hampered coming into this season by those slight regulation changes.
Wow, that feels like a long time.
This blue dot, Latifi, has become stationary just past turn 14. That is the moment he's now stationary, having crashed. So we'll listen to the commentary of Brundle and Crofty again.
Time ago, doesn't it? But yes, Mercedes had an awful pre-season test, didn't they? We thought they would be in terrible trouble come the first race.
Oh no! Nicholas Latifi has crashed.
Oh no! Nicholas Latifi has crashed. Now, locations of the cars. Lewis Hamilton, where is he? He's here. Behind Lewis Hamilton is Lando Norris. So Lewis Hamilton has lapped up to and including 8th place Lando Norris. Who is Lando Norris racing? Well, Lando Norris, having suffered his slow puncture and had to go into the pits to play his role due to a tyre twist, Crofty, he has emerged on track in 10th. He's managed to overtake Ocon. He's managed to overtake Alonso. Now he's in 8th. He's trying to chase down Gasly and Tsunoda because he was in 4th before he was made to pit. There's Gasly. So Norris is trying to chase down Gasly. He is 11.2 seconds behind Gasly. Verstappen here in second is actually 11.9 seconds behind Hamilton. So second place is 11.9 seconds behind first. 8th place is only 11.2 seconds behind 7th. What will happen now, everybody? Safety car! Crazy shit, kids! What's going to happen now? Say the kids that are the commentators that are there to arouse the children.
I think that is at turn 14, where we saw Kimi Raikkonen crash in practice. It isn't.
Kimi Raikkonen practiced it in practice.
Turn 14, and yes, that will be a safety car because marshals are going to need to recover that Williams and to work on it. And this now completely changes the context of this race if they can clear the Williams in time and we can have a couple of laps racing to the checkered flag.
There's bound to be a couple of...
Straight away, Martin Brundle, the expert of the sport, conditions the minds of the people to say that there's bound to be a couple. I've done the data on this. On average, 5.5 laps of racing are lost when such an incident takes place. When a car crashes and they use a safety car to deal with the situation, and when there are lapped cars in that running order, on average 5.5 laps of the race are lost. There are only 5.4 laps remaining. There were only 5.4 laps remaining of this race for the leader Lewis Hamilton when Latifi crashed. And Brundle is telling you there's bound to be a couple. Well, if there's only 5.4 remaining and on average it takes 5.5, where do you get there's bound to be a couple of racing laps remaining? Well, you don't, do you? The data would suggest this is going to be a safety car finish. The data would suggest that providing Lewis Hamilton can keep his car on the road and make it to the end, he will be a record-breaking 8th-time world champion, setting a new record in the history of the sport.
That's where Max Verstappen's much fresher tyres will fire up.
That's where Max's much fresher tyres will fire up. Max hasn't changed his tyres onto the new softs yet, but the narrative already starts.
And give him the confidence on any kind of
restart.
It depends how there will be. I'm pretty sure on lap 52.
Hamilton's now on lap 54. I'll show you. Data view.
Slow pace.
With this slow pace, there you go, lap 54, Hamilton. With this slow pace.
The slow pace with 5 to go, that they'll probably have a lap or two, as long as if they get a vehicle on there and get that out of the way.
So now Verstappen pits for these fresh, soft compound tyres, which give the drivers a huge advantage. This is the compound of tyre that they use to set their fastest laps on the qualifying laps. Okay, because they are the most grippy tyre. They're soft, malleable, and provide the car with the most amount of grip, enabling them to lap that lap approximately 2.5 seconds faster than when you're using the hard compound of tyre, giving you a huge advantage if this is to become more of a race. But if you're not allowed to resume racing, not allowed to challenge each other for position, doesn't matter what compound of tyre you're on, because if it's just a procession behind the safety car, doesn't matter which tyres you're on. All that matters is you get to the end of the race. Knowing the data, knowing that this is likely to be a safety car finish, then that's the most important thing.
And coming into the pits, Max Verstappen. Hamilton stays out. Verstappen coming into the pits, and I would imagine there's a set of soft tyres waiting for him to go onto that Red Bull car. Yes, it is.
It is now where Hamilton catches the safety car, and you'll see Norris bunch up behind Hamilton, and you'll see Gasly and Tsunoda start disappearing off around the track. They will both go into the pits and get fresh tyres themselves, but ultimately they will end up at the back of this safety car bunch, leaving Lando Norris almost an entire lap behind Pierre Gasly, when previously Lando was closer to Pierre Gasly than Max was to Lewis. You cannot allow the deployment of a safety car in a race to cause that skew of outcomes. Nobody in the sport knows this. None of the experts in the sport know this. The governing body of the sport doesn't know this. Strange that, isn't it? Strange that none of the world's media, these Formula One journalists, know this.
I can't box.
Negative.
Right, so if there is a restart, Verstappen now has fresh, soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used, hard compound tyres. They will let any lapped runners...
Listen to the wording. They will let any lapped runners through. And again, this is the wording of the regulation. An argument after the event was about, oh, any doesn't mean all. This was preconceived.
Restart. Verstappen now has fresh, soft tyres. Lewis has heavily used, hard compound tyres. They will let any lapped runners through on the safety car restart. And he will presumably end up... Well, they had nothing to lose. Once again, Red Bull had nothing to lose here.
They have nothing to...
Red Bull had nothing to lose. Remember, Red Bull had nothing to lose.
Hamilton is a long way clear as Perez also pits, as we can see, and there's quite a few coming into the pits. Hamilton's a long way clear on the track, but I rather get the feeling by the time he comes around to the main straight, he's not going to be able to pit and stay ahead of Max Verstappen. That chance wasn't there or has gone by for Mercedes.
Verstappen tucked up behind Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin there.
But he won't be on the restart.
The restart. Verstappen won't be there on the restart, everybody. Priming the audience.
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
These messages, oh, it's unbelievable, man, are being selected by F1 TV to create the narrative, create the story, to the global watching audience of 108.7 million people. I can't show you what they are showing the world because they will claim copyright. So I have to use this view. But at least you get a perspective of where these cars are on track.
So look, we're on lap 54 of 58 here. They've got to clear that debris away, and the fire extinguishers have obviously gone off because the brakes, I'm sure, were getting very, very hot. But they've also got to let the lapped cars unlap themselves.
Absolutely right, Crofty.
Just at the back of my mind, I wonder if we're going to get any racing laps in the...
Absolutely right, Crofty. Are we going to get any racing laps? And if we're not, is Lewis Hamilton on course for a record-breaking 8-time world champion? Do you ever hear them say that?
This race, wait and see. This is what happened.
Wait and see.
To Nicholas Latifi. He was scrapping away with Mick Schumacher.
That's not the corner he crashed on, is it?
That was earlier on, I think, in the...
Now, we'll come back to Lewis Hamilton, starting here at turn 14. What we'll go to is look at Fernando Alonso's view, the experienced Fernando Alonso. Coming round that corner. When he came by there first time round, there wasn't this white powdered smoke in the air. This is the fire extinguisher being deployed. This is the crashed car still on track. This is the experienced Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, we should unlap.
We should unlap, says Fernando.
I'll get the job done.
To get this job done. What job is that, Fernando? What job is that?
Till they retire the car.
Until they retire the car.
Because if not, it's going to be too late.
If not, it's going to be too late. Too late for what, Fernando? What's your interest in this, Fernando? You're not in the title battle, Fernando. What would it be too late for? So that is what Fernando Alonso spoke to his race engineer about.
There are.
So let's go back a little bit and listen to Crofty and Brundle. So they're coming round to turn 14 again.
Earlier on, I think, in the skirmish with Schumacher, they barged wheels, went off the track, would have picked up a bit of dust and debris on his tyres, and then the rear just lets go.
The dirty tyre narrative. Oh, the rear just lets go. Well, it would do that if you selected a lower gear and dumped the throttle when you're turning a corner. The rear will come around on you. Yes, that's how you do it, lads. And then just switch it off. Don't attempt to restart it and see if you can make it back to the pits. Just switch it off there, lad. Then we can deploy the safety car, and then we can set up a last lap shootout, so the World Championship can be decided on the last lap of the last Grand Prix of the season. You couldn't make it up unless they absolutely did.
Probably dirty tyres from being offline there. Will we get any more racing laps or not? What jeopardy at the end.
What jeopardy, children? Stay on the edge of your seat.
End of this Grand Prix, the end of this World Championship. Will there be any more racing laps? If there are, then Verstappen has got the tyres to really do something with them. Will they let the lap runners through?
Will they let the lap runners through? Asks the expert of the sport. What do you mean, will they let the lap runners through? It's a mandatory requirement, Martin.
Well, they always do let the lap runners through, and in between...
Good cop, bad cop. Will they do this? Well, they always do.
Hamilton and Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel.
They always do, and here's 5 that are just between 1 and 2. How many cars are lapped, lads? Well, we know that the car behind Lewis Hamilton is Norris. Who remains running? Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel. Yeah, they're the ones that you've just listed. But there's also Ricciardo, Stroll and Mick Schumacher. 8 cars. They all need releasing. Sporting fairness needs to be restored to all 8. They all qualify for the unlapping procedure.
Yes, but if they do that, it extends the safety car period.
No, it's not an extension, it's a mandatory requirement. The safety car period is what it is. It's however long it takes to achieve that outcome.
But that's what they always do. Take the lap runners out of the way so they're not interfering in play.
Is that why they did 2 laps in Spain 2019? So that they weren't interfering in pet play, or so that sporting fairness was restored to those released cars? Is that why they did 2 laps in Brazil 2019? Is that why they did 2 laps at Sakir 2020 and at Eiffel 2020? You see, it's all a lie by these liars, these contracted broadcasters, contracted to lie to and arouse the children. Abusers.
What's the situation behind? So, situation is Verstappen has pitted. He had a free pit stop. We would have lost track position to him.
The Mercedes team is in on this, and so is Bono. Don't trust him.
Laps remaining, or when you cross the line. So this field has to bunch, and then they have to send lap cars through.
So again, these messages, they're pre-recorded because it says 4 laps to go when you cross the line. So that took place before he crossed the line. Look at when they're playing it to us. This is selected by F1 TV to create a narrative. Look at the jeopardy, everybody.
So it may not restart.
Is he right behind me?
He will be once they've sorted out all the order. This is going to take a while to sort out.
There might be one.
With new tyres.
Copy, Lewis. We would have lost track position if we had pitted.
And that was the big key here.
Now, the big key is not about the tyres. The big key is, will this be a safety car finish or not? Will they be able to get this incident cleared in time to be able to perform this procedure and do it in time so that there can be a racing lap? Now, the only way that it can be done in accordance with the regulations is for those lapped cars to be released prior to the end of lap 56. And the last of those lapped cars, Mick Schumacher, have passed the leader and the safety car prior to the end of lap 56, so that lap 57 can be afforded to those released cars as the opportunity to try and make it around that track to catch the back of that snake. And only then can the safety car depart the track, having completed lap 57, to enable the final lap of the race, lap 58, to be a racing lap. That's the only way that you will see any racing. If those lapped cars cannot be released by the end of lap 56, and have all passed the leader and safety car prior to lap 56 ending, this race has to be a safety car finish, because even if they are released on lap 57, the safety car returns to the pits at the end of the following lap, which means it returns to the pits at the end of lap 58, peeling off the track just before the end of lap 58. No overtaking can take place prior to that start-finish line, meaning Lewis Hamilton crosses that start-finish line at the end of lap 58. Nobody's allowed to overtake him. He becomes a record-breaking 8-time world champion. The key here is, can this track be cleared in time and is declared safe so that this unlapping procedure can begin prior to the end of lap 56? They are all dressing it up as the key thing being the tyres.
Mercedes for the second time keeping Lewis Hamilton out whilst Max Verstappen pitted. Red Bull had nothing to lose.
Remember, Red Bull had nothing to lose. We'll find out in Martin's interviews afterwards that Red Bull played some clever cards, but here they had nothing to lose.
Hamilton potentially losing track position, and in this case, if we don't go racing again because you can't overtake under the safety car, he would have lost the World Championship.
Is there a...
Hamilton is on course to be a record-breaking 8-time world champion. What they're saying is, had he have pitted and lost position, and then you don't go racing again, he'd have lost the world championship. None of that happened. He didn't pit, he didn't lose position, and he's on course to be a champion. A record-breaking 8th. But the way they word it,
potentially losing track position, and in this case, if we don't go racing again because you can't overtake under the safety car, he would have lost the World Championship.
It just presented the reverse of none of that happened, did it? He didn't pit, he didn't lose track position, he's in the lead. So if we don't go racing again, he will be a record-breaking 8-time world champion. They didn't say that. Why didn't they say that?
Is there a vehicle pulling the Williams out of the way or not yet?
Can't see it at the...
You see, they can't see. You see, you should be able to see, because Nicholas Latifi's car will show you. There he is. Look, he's on a crane. So there is a vehicle on the track pulling him out of the way.
Down to you.
Yeah, have a load of other people pitting. Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo. We've had Lance Stroll as well into the pits. I'll give you those orders as they shake out. But yeah, it was just bad luck. I mean, you saw the Mercedes mechanics just hanging around outside the pits looking at whether they had the order to come in. But Hamilton was so close to the pit entrance that it does seem that the engineer's right there. Whatever they would have done, they would have lost track position.
The safety car's not going full gas down the straight.
Okay, what is likely to be happening is the safety car will be going slow to give more time to the clear-up operation to ensure that there is the possibility, the slower the safety car goes, the more time is afforded to those doing the clear-up, giving laps left to resume this race. But that is not right, because the safety car is supposed to be going as fast as it can go to ensure that these Formula 1 cars are still going at a reasonable speed to keep temperature in their tyres and brakes and airflow going through their engines and into to keep the cooling of the engine. That is what we're told it's supposed to be there for. That's why the safety car still has to be on its limit, and relatively speaking to that, these Formula 1 cars are relatively cruising. But if the safety car's not going on its limit, it's purposefully going slower, then what it's doing that for a reason, and that is to try and ensure a racing lap here, which is also askew. But how do they describe it?
Copy, Lewis, understood.
His tyres are cooling, he needs more pace.
Oh, that means there's a problem for Lewis's tyres. It's a tyre narrative.
More heat into those tyres.
This is awful for Lewis then, with those hard compact and heavily used tyres. So there's the shunt then that caused the safety.
Keep replaying that Nicholas Latifi shunt.
Has to be a safety car there, and but will they let the lap runners through? I don't think.
Asking the question, the expert of the sport asking, will they do the mandatory procedure?
It's absolutely mandatory.
He doesn't think it's absolutely mandatory. He's been the commentator of the sport for 28 years. This regulation was reintroduced at the start of the 2012 season. This is now 2021. This is the 199th race contested since these regulations were reintroduced, and he's commentated on most of those 199 races. All of the safety car deployments, all of the time this has actually happened. I've done a video on it. I've done all the data on it. And he's asking the question of the audience, and this is the expert.
But that's normally on a wet day that they don't.
Gaslighting. There's not a single example of this being true.
And if so, how long will they wait for the...
And if they do the procedure, how long will they wait? Well, the procedure is they've got to be released and the safety car returns to the pits at the end of the following lap. That's the minimum, Martin. And the race director has his discretion, the discretion to keep that safety car on track for longer if he decides.
Those lap cars to get out of the way. If they wait...
To get out of the way. It's not the purpose, is it? Well, the purpose, Lando Norris here, in 8th. Where's Gasly? Oh, Gasly is now all the way here and will end up right at the back of this safety car snake. It's nothing to do with getting Lando Norris out of the way. It's restoring his chances relative to that of Pierre Gasly.
For them to catch the pack up, which they don't have to do.
No. Good cop, bad cop. Absolutely right, Martin. I affirm your lie, Martin.
And I don't think we'll get a racing lap. If they let them through, we could get...
If they let them through. Look at what the wording used to condition the minds. They're not explaining in any way the purpose of this procedure, the mandatory procedure, which has to be carried out if a sporting contest has to be nullified to deal with a safety incident. These are people that are paid to defraud the world.
One racing lap.
3 laps to go.
3 laps to go. Now, lap 56. Now, let's just see what the drivers know about this. Let's just go and listen to Fernando again. Where's Fernando Alonso? Here he is.
So at the end of this lap, there will be 3 laps remaining.
Yeah, come on. Let unlap the guys. And next lap is green flag. So in 2 laps time.
So Fernando's keen for the unlapping. He can still see that there's a lot of white powder on the track and he knows that the track's not safe. Let's go to Vettel. Vettel's an experienced driver. Let's go back a little bit. No, it might be next lap where we get the audio from Vettel. I think it's next lap. We'll go back to track again.
They're not going to be working on it, and that's hour.
Back up, which they don't have to do.
No.
Then I don't think we'll get a racing lap. If they let them through, we could get 1 racing lap.
3 laps.
That would be exciting, wouldn't it? Now, what we're seeing here, this blue dot of Sergio Perez, the second Red Bull car, gets told to retire. This draws your attention. What this does, this hands the Constructors' Championship, and with it the prize money of $177 million to Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team. And the reason it does that, Mercedes came into this race with a lead in that Constructors' Championship of 28 points. The maximum number of points that you can achieve with one car is 26 points, 25 points for winning, and that season you got 1 point for setting the fastest lap in that race. By retiring their second car, nil point, then Red Bull, even if Max wins and gets the fastest lap, and both Mercedes retire out that race or crash out of that race, Red Bull will not overturn a 28-point deficit with just one car. Now, that Red Bull car doesn't appear to have any problem whatsoever. It is currently running in third place, currently on course for 15 points in that championship. Now, if Lewis Hamilton suffered mechanical failure or a puncture and isn't able to complete that race, what it would result in Max Verstappen being promoted to first, Sergio Perez being promoted to second. That would give, and Max would have got the fastest lap as well. That would give Red Bull 26 points for Max Verstappen, 18 points for Sergio Perez. That is a haul of 44 points. That would have meant that the remaining Mercedes car, Valtteri Bottas, would have been promoted to fourth place. Now, for fourth place, you get 12 points. Red Bull would have got 44 points. Mercedes would have only got 12 points. That's a difference of plus 32 to the Red Bull team. That plus 32 overturns that deficit of 28 points going into that race. Surely, if there was nothing wrong with your car, your engine's not being stressed, you've only got to make it around a couple of laps, you'd stay on track just on the off chance, wouldn't you? Just on the off chance that you'd be the one that was overtaking Mercedes and winning that prize money. But what happens?
Laps to go. Nicholas Latifi is seemingly okay after that contact with the barriers, around about 90 miles an hour. But he would have taken a whack, and it's good to see that he's okay. Sergio Perez coming into the pits again. So Max, I think they're retiring the car here. Perez into the pits for the fourth time. I didn't understand why, but I think they are retiring the car, and yes, they're not going to be working on it, and that is the end of Sergio Perez's Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Checo, we need to retire the car. We need to retire the car. Box.
And for the
really? Yeah, box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
So we got the distraction of Perez, which handed the championship to Mercedes. And now we got, and lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Now, that is not a valid instruction. It's just not an instruction. All that happens is, once that safety car is deployed, you just continue lapping behind that safety car until you are given an instruction to unlap. Otherwise, you just continue just lapping behind it because you're awaiting the track to be declared safe. It's not declared safe. There's a reason it's not declared safe. We can go to Nicholas Latifi's car again and have a look. You won't see this anywhere else because the world's media has never shown anybody. This is Nicholas Latifi's car being still manhandled. It's on a crane, and here it is being dragged into the corner, and there are still marshals on the track. Right here. There they are. Marshals on the track sweeping up that fire extinguisher powder. This track is not safe. And they've just given the instruction, lap cars will not be allowed to overtake. That's because there's marshals on the track, because the clerk of the course can't declare the track safe. How do Martin Brundle and David Croft describe this?
It stands.
And so, let's just go back here.
The car. Box.
And for the
really? Yeah, box.
And lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
It's not mandatory in the regulations, which leaves Verstappen with a lot.
Poor Israel Verstappen, he's got a lot to do.
Of work to do then.
So Mercedes,
the victim, Max Verstappen,
will be constructors' champions at the end of this race, as it stands at the moment, assuming that Hamilton and Bottas finish this race.
No, they were constructors' champions and got the 177 million the moment Perez retired.
The Drivers' Championship, though, is very much up for grabs.
No, it's not if we can't get this race restarted and the track clerk of the course can't declare the track safe because there's marshals still on the track.
The lapped cars won't be allowed to overtake, which means
we can't resume the race.
That there are plenty of cars in between Hamilton and Verstappen for Verstappen to fight his way through.
Doesn't mean that at all.
Norris, Alonso, and also Ocon and Leclerc.
The second time just those 5 are mentioned, not the other 3 that are lapped that would have to unlap as well.
And Sebastian Vettel.
None of which are for position.
So, Lando Norris, Alonso, Ocon, Leclerc and Vettel in positions, and let's also remember that Perez is now out, so they all get promoted 1. They're effectively in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th. Martin Brundle is saying, actually, none of them are for position. You can just ignore them. No, they're all for positions. They're all fighting for World Championship points. And actually now 7th place Norris should have the ability to fight 6th place Gasly, but Norris is here. And Gasly is all the way around here, all the way around here, all the way there. Almost a lap ahead of Norris now, when previously Norris was closer to Gasly than Verstappen here was to Hamilton. Hence the regulation.
Of course, they're obliged to get out of the way, but Lewis will be long down the road.
That I suppose is the compromise that race control...
I suppose this is the compromise that the race director is making here. You tell me a sport where the commentators will say, oh, well, this is the compromise that the referee is making with the rules here. No, the referee, okay, the person overseeing the event, oversees that event in accordance with the rules, not a compromise. Doesn't freestyle a compromise of the rule. But the commentators are supposing, they're guessing, oh, well, I think this is the compromise that he's making here. Mind conditioning the global watching audience.
Have made here by giving the best possible chance for
to arouse the children.
Racing to the finish rather than finishing behind the safety car. They've decided the lap cars will stay where they are.
Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
This message here actually took place when Max was driving between turn 5 and turn 6. It actually lasted 20 seconds. F1 TV took that message, the audio, they condensed it down to 12 seconds, chose it to play to the global audience to project Israel Verstappen as once again being the victim of the situation.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Poor Max Verstappen, everybody. Once again, the victim.
Well, I'll try and look at this objectively.
But thankfully, Crofty's being objective. We'll come back to Crofty's objectivity in a second. Let's have a quick look at the global feed. A short snippet, otherwise it gets blocked on copyright. We're showing us the Red Bull garage and the tension. We're creating the drama with what they show us.
Cars to overtake,
We've got Max's girlfriend praying to the racing gods.
No laps of racing to the checkered flag. So
there she is, a prayer to the racing gods.
What do Red Bull want?
What do Red Bull want, everybody? Well, let's concentrate on these men and women dressed in the orange overalls. The marshals there, still on the track, clearing up the debris. What do Red Bull want, everybody? What do Red Bull want?
Max Verstappen and Giampiero Lambiase as race engineer.
Don't give a fuck what Giampiero Lambiase wants. There's one of the marshals departing.
Do they want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the...
There's two. Here's the third.
Safety car with no overtake.
There they are. There's Max Verstappen. Okay. Now behind Max, there's still 3 other cars. Where are they all on track now? This is lap 56 and 58. Remember, all 8 of these lap cars have to have passed the leader and the safety car on this lap. And then the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap, lap 57. And that's the only way where there can be a racing lap, lap 58. That's the only way it can happen. Where are they now?
As race engineer, do they want...
Oh, they're just that far away from the start-finish line. The last of the lap cars, the white dot of Mick Schumacher's all the way back here. There's no way that he's going to make it past all of this and past the leader in the safety car prior to there. For a start, the clerk of the course can only now just radio back saying, yeah, I'm satisfied. And he's not. And I'll prove to you later on as well. Even if he did notify the race director, the racetrack is now safe. You can now radio each of these teams and tell your drivers they can now have the order to unlap. These communications take time. They take longer.
Want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no...
For Hamilton's dot to get to the checkered flag.
No overtaking. Because I think that...
And even having been given that message, they've then got to start overtaking.
That is the decision that has come from race control.
They wouldn't have done it in time. We're now on lap 57. This is guaranteed to be a safety car finish. Providing Lewis Hamilton keeps his car on the road, he is guaranteed to be a record-breaking 8-time world champion. Let's go back to the commentary.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
Well, I'll try and look at this objectively. We should get one lap of racing here. If we allowed the lap cars to overtake...
We will only get one lap of racing if the lapped cars can be released prior to the end of this lap. That's not happening. So you're lying, Crofty.
We'd have no laps of racing to the checkered flag. So
if they don't, they'd have no laps. Yeah? So Lewis Hamilton would be a record-breaking 8-time world champion.
So what do Red Bull want?
So what do Red Bull want? Why is the sports commentator asking what Red Bull want? This is supposed to be a sport conducted in accordance with the rules and regulations of the sport. This is what is happening. There is a driver on course to break all of the standing records in Formula 1, break Michael Schumacher's long-standing record, something that we never thought we'd see happen. And this commentator is asking what Red Bull want. Because Red Bull are projecting themselves as being victims. They were 12 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton before Nicholas Latifi crashed on purpose. Now they're projecting themselves as victims.
And Max Verstappen and Gianpiero Lambiase as race engineer, do they want the chance, or do they want to finish behind the safety car with no overtaking? Because I think that is the decision that has come from race control. And personally, this is the decision that gives them the best chance if they want.
I'll be objective. Personally, this is the decision that gives Red Bull the best chance if Red Bull want that chance. What chance are you affording to Lando Norris relative to Pierre Gasly? Has Lando Norris got the chance of challenging Pierre Gasly for now 6th position in that race? Does that give Lando the best chance if he wants it, Crofty? No, it doesn't, does it?
Yeah, I mean the regulation, as I said, they may allow the lap cars through. It's not mandatory.
It absolutely is, because the deployment of the safety car has caused this skewed outcome. It has caused Lando Norris to effectively lose a lap to Pierre Gasly. You cannot allow the introduction of a safety car in a race to deal with a safety concern to impact the drivers' races in such a skewed fashion. Hence, you carry out the mandatory procedure to guard against that. It is entirely mandatory. The entire sport pretends it doesn't know the purpose of its own regulations, even though the race director has demonstrated on multiple occasions that he knows exactly the purpose of those regulations. It's all a global sporting fraud. Martin Brundle was the voice of it. Hence, it's likely that Kim Kardashian is aware of that.
But as you point out, Crofty, there'd be no racing laps if they let the lap cars through, because I think the safety car will come in at the end of this lap and there will be one racing lap.
So we're now on lap 57. Martin Brundle, the expert of the sport, is still priming the audience to suggest that he thinks the safety car will come in at the end of this lap and there will be one racing lap. So he's trying to suggest to you that we're going to restart like this. You can't restart like this. Lando Norris cannot be left a lap down on Pierre Gasly effectively. You can't do it. But we've got F1 TV creating the narrative. They've selected this to play to the watching audience.
They'll all get blue flags, I would imagine.
Lies from Crofty, embellishing the lie of Brundle.
Christian and Michael.
Yes, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way?
Just give me ball.
Christian Horner fluffing his lines.
Because Christian, just give me a second. Okay, my big one is to get this incident clear.
You only need one racing lap.
Words to prime the audience. Manufactured. You only need one racing lap, everybody. Now, we're on lap 57. The simple answer from Michael Massey is Christian. You know the regulation. Even if I do release those 8 cars now, then the safety car returns to the pits at the end of the following lap, which means this is a safety car finish, Christian. F1 TV, the people that create the broadcast, they know the sport well enough to know that that's the case. We're now on lap 57. They've chosen that message to play it to the global audience, to create that narrative, to lead the global audience to believe that that's a possibility when it categorically isn't. Oh, it's confusing, it's controversial, it's a global fraud. And Martin Brundle is the voice of it to validate it. And people believe it because they believe him as the presented expert.
Well, I assume Christian's talking about then, getting the lap cars out of the way, not clearing the incidents away.
Yeah, I mean, all of the cars.
Waffle. I assume Christian's talking about getting them out of the way and not clearing the incident away. You've deployed a safety car to deal with the incident. You'd think that he's not bothered about clearing the incident up. Ridiculous.
Cars in front of Max will get blue flags and are duty bound to get out of the way, but they're all in a reasonable fight themselves, aren't they?
So a few laps ago, Martin said that these cars in between Lewis and Hamilton, none of them were for position, of course. Now he says, oh, they're all in a reasonable fight themselves.
Well, so here we go.
So here we go. Where do we go, Crofty?
Normally, you'd see the race leader backing up the pack a little bit when the safety...
Normally, you'd see the race leader backing up the pack, right? When the instruction that all of those cars are released, and then they'll follow the safety car around for the next lap, and then you'll get the notification safety car in, and that's when you'll see the leader backing the pack up, Crofty, ready to go. But why are you saying it's going to happen now? Because none of that's happened, Crofty.
Wait, but they're all in a reasonable fight themselves, aren't they?
Well, so here we go. Normally, you'd see the race leader backing up the pack a little bit when the safety car goes. I would imagine on this occasion, if we do get a lap, Martin, Hamilton will want to be disappearing off into the distance as fast as he can.
Yeah, I don't see any way Verstappen can do anything with that. But
oh, Max can do nothing about that.
Indeed, is the safety car coming in this lap? We think it should do, could do.
Is the safety car coming in? We think it should do, could do. Why would you think that? That's not allowed in the regulations. But the commentators think it could do, should do. They're 199th race commentating under these regulations. And they think it could do, should do. Paid to lie to the world, to convince us all of the fraud. This is Martin Brundle.
Is there any more debris to clear up? But we're halfway round.
Is there any more debris to clear up, everybody? We've deployed a safety car to deal with debris. We think it could do, we think the safety car is coming in, but we don't know if there's any debris on the track. That's gaslighting. That's just trying to disorientate the audience. What's going to happen now? Stay on the edge of your seats. We think it's safety cars coming in, but is there any more debris on the track? Nobody knows what's going to happen. Ooh, it's crazy shit, kids.
Race control are now saying lapped cars to overtake the safety car. So Norris and Alonso and Ocon and Leclerc and Vettel to overtake it.
And it's ending. Wow.
And it's ending, wow. I mean, at the start of this lap, you told us you think the safety car will be coming at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing lap. You've just told us you think the safety car will be coming in. It could do, should do. Is there any more debris on the track? And now, when it's ending and it's ending, wow! Big surprise! And F1 TV have got it queued up. The dismay of the Mercedes boss, Toto Wolff. That, you know, he's been on the radio, he's complained to the race director, and they've saved the message ready for this moment.
Mike.
You couldn't make it up, could you? Queued up, ready to convince the world that Toto Wolff is dismayed at what's going on.
So,
now, I have missed out the Sebastian Vettel audio, but I can do that in other videos. This one's going to be long.
There's confusion, but
it's confusing everybody.
Safety car is coming in at the end of this lap, so those back markers allowed to overtake.
Those back markers. You mean 7th place, 8th place, 9th place, 10th place, and 11th place. 7th? You know, that's World Championship points. That wants to be challenging for 6th, where there's more World Championship points, and 5th, where there's more World Championship points. They're not back markers. And when you're released, the instruction is you've got to make it around the track at an appropriate speed without overtaking, making every effort to catch the back of the pack. You're not racing.
Take the safety car, and that has now left Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen.
These drivers are told that they're racing from the line, which is illegal. Not only is the notion of racing from the line illegal, Lando Norris here is looking at the track and it's still yellow. That's what that flashing light is. This track is still under yellow conditions, which means caution conditions, which means no overtaking. Each of those cars has been told that they are racing. When the track is yellow, you've got to be driving appropriately, which is no overtaking, no racing, slowing your car accordingly. Still yellow. Still yellow. Look at this flashing light. It's only there. It's only there when Lando Norris is 150 metres out from turn 4. That's turn 5, sorry. Go to track of view. That's where Lando Norris is, turn 5. It's only now where that track is not yellow, and yet these 5 cars have been racing on it. That doesn't appear in the FIA official report. What we've got here, though, is Hamilton Verstappen. Where's 3rd place? Oh, he's held back. In between Verstappen in 2nd and Carlos Sainz, the Ferrari, in 3rd, we've left 2 of these lap cars, Daniel Ricciardo and Lance Stroll, meaning that 3rd cannot challenge for 2nd on this restart. You've separated out just 2 competitors in a multi-competitor event. You're not allowed to do that. That doesn't appear in the FIA report. None of the experts, none of the governing body of the sport can identify the problems here. The stewards making the decision can't identify the problems. All of the explanations that Red Bull are allowed to argue in the appeal, where Mercedes are appealing to the governing body of the sport, that the governing body of the sport has broken the regulations, rather than those stewards compare what those regulations are and what the governing body did and agree, yes, indeed, you are correct, Mercedes, the governing body has got it wrong. They summoned Red Bull to Mercedes' appeal and sent Red Bull away for 40 minutes to construct an argument in reply, and then the stewards took on board the 5 points that Red Bull fraudulently argued, all of which are entirely wrong, and decided no, Red Bull are correct in this, appeal dismissed. Mercedes then had the opportunity of appealing by the Thursday of that week. Instead of appealing, Toto Wolff dressed up in a black turtleneck, sat in front of a concrete wall and played the victim. It was all a sport-wide fraud. All of the teams agreed to a racing finish that's not allowed. Just like in this Football World Cup that is taking place in America now. The two teams playing the game are not allowed to agree before the game that we'll end this game with a penalty shootout. We'll agree for that. That will excite the kiddies. No, that's manipulation of a sporting event. That's contrivance. You're not allowed to agree to how the ending is going to be. But that's how they sold it to people. And people went, oh, yes, well, if the teams agreed, then that's okay. Because people are brain dead. People don't understand. People believe these broadcasters on the TV. You've all been lied to. Every form of media has lied to you. They contrived it. And what happened is on that last illegal lap is that not only did, Max Verstappen performed an overtake, but he then started weaving down the track. He overtook Lewis Hamilton. Prior to this now, when they were going slow in the build-up for this lap, they didn't penalise Max there, and it gifted Max Verstappen the 2021 championship. But that was just the culmination of a fraudulent season. A season where at Belgium 2021, there could be no racing because of the torrential rain. And so what the governing body did, it paraded the cars on track behind the safety car for a couple of laps and pretended that it was a race. Now, no racing can begin until that safety car is peeled off into the pits and the lead car crosses that line for the first time, and that's when the race begins. That never happened, and yet when these cars began parading on track, Martin Brundle said to everybody, so the race is officially underway. And then later on that lap, he'll go, when's this race going to start? You couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. They are liars. They condition the audience to the narrative of the billionaire-owned Formula One fraudulently lying to the global audience. They contrived the 2021 season. They deprived Lewis Hamilton of a record-breaking 8th World Championship. That is what they did. And perhaps Kim is aware of that, hence the reason she blanked Martin Brundle. Now, not only did that happen, the very next day after Abu Dhabi 2021, the 13th of December, Martin was interviewed because, again, this is what they do. They roll out Martin Brundle to convince the world of how things should be. It would be terribly sad, said Martin Brundle, if the 2021 title would be decided in court. And Martin urges everybody to move on already the very next day. Now, we've just had the Monaco Grand Prix, whereby the result has been amended a week after the event, when the Alpine team has appealed Pierre Gasly's penalty. The FIA wrongly applied a penalty because the penalty infringement was wrong. The detection of a penalty was wrong. These infringements for exceeding the pit lane limiter speed, it was wrongly detected, and the Alpine team appealed. The appeal was correct, and they've amended the decision. What took place at Abu Dhabi was the race director wrongly applied the regulations because it was all a contrivance to set up, to manufacture last lap drama so that the World Championship would be decided on the last lap of the last Grand Prix of the season to excite the global watching audience, to ensure that these new fans that they'd attracted to the show would remain watching the show the next season, because Formula One's so exciting, you can't ever turn off from it because anything can happen at any stage, as we've just proven. It can even be decided on the last lap of the last race of the season. It's only live once. Stay watching, kiddies, like Formula One. And because now we've got a bigger global audience, that means all of you that want to sponsor this to sell your brand to the kiddies, the marketing value of the show goes up. The price we charge you to put your name on our cars goes up. Everybody makes money. Cha-ching! All of the teams affected. Ferrari not being able to challenge for second. Did they submit an appeal? No, they didn't. McLaren, Lando Norris not being able to challenge for sixth. Did they submit an appeal? No, they didn't. Both teams are worth more than $1 billion more than they previously were due to the enhanced profile of the show due to the drama created. Every single team is worth at least £1 billion more. So, well, that they claim anyway. That the boys in the city estimate the value as being. Yes. The manipulation of the financial markets. But let's see what Rupert here has to say. Lovely jacket there, Rupert.
Martin, thanks for joining us. Everybody has been talking about this, so 24 hours or so on. What are your thoughts on what happened?
Well, it was an incredible few minutes of sport, wasn't it? With a very grave consequences if you were Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes-Benz, and an amazing experience if you were Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Very complex.
Very complex, everybody. I mean, I'm Martin Brundle of the sport. I can tell you the situation. It was complex. Thanks for that, Martin.
Matter. So it was so exciting to.
It was complex and it was exciting. Kiddies, don't you worry, little heads.
A wonderful finale to
and it was wonderful.
Wonderful Grand Prix season. But then, of course, you know, there's a lot of controversy around it, and it's all a bit uncomfortable and doesn't shine a particularly good light on Formula One. And it's
a bit uncomfortable. Why is it uncomfortable, Martin? And doesn't shine a good light.
Processes, but it was a hugely complex.
It was complex again, says Martin.
And compressed.
And it was compressed.
Moment in, you know.
That was max weaving, which is illegal, by the way.
And several regulations were tripping over themselves.
Several regulations. The regulations themselves were tripping over each other. Which regulations were tripping over each other there, Martin? The ones that you've all contrived about the race director having the overriding authority over the use of the safety car. Claiming, oh, well, he can do what he wants. He can choose when to put it out and when to bring it back in. Oh, that trips out. No, it doesn't. You see, it doesn't do that at all. The regulations relating to the safety car are once you've deployed the safety car, once the race director has used his overriding authority overseeing that event, once he's chosen to deploy that safety car, he is bound by the safety car regulation. Now, his overriding authority is to exceed the amount of minimum time those regulations state that safety car has to be deployed for, to ensure sporting fairness is restored to all competitors, as I demonstrated to you in the first example at the 2019 Spanish Grand Prix. The minimum requirement is all lap cars that qualified to do so will be instructed to pass the leader and the safety car, and the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. The 15.3, the race director's discretion, gives him the discretion of keeping that safety car on track beyond that minimum additional lap afforded to those cars to ensure that they fully caught the back. There's no regulation tripping over any other regulation. And yet Gaslighter Brundle projects to the world that that is what is taking place.
And we ended up with a bit of a hybrid solution.
A hybrid solution, says Martin.
There, which is
Martin's reading off a script. You can see from his eyes here.
Is why the lawyers are getting involved.
Oh, the lawyers, don't you worry, little heads, it's legal. You wouldn't be able to understand it. Lawyers, expensive, legal, complicated, nobody understands, says the gaslighter. This is abuse, Martin. This is abuse.
Interpretation of wording in the regulations. And
this is why Kim Kardashian wouldn't talk to this evil bastard.
But, you know, the sporting regs are 99 pages and you need to read every single word carefully.
No, you don't, you see. To understand the bit that is relevant, you just need to understand the bit that I've demonstrated to you using tracker view, the impact that the deployment of the safety car has on the competitors within that race, and why the need is to restore sporting fairness to all those cars, because they're all in that race and their outcomes are impacted differently by the deployment of that safety car. And the regulation is there to restore sporting fairness to all of those competitors and not produce skewed outcomes.
It's like a legal document. And the sporting code, which backs everything up, is you know, that sort of thick. And
how big is your font, Martin? It's not that thick at all. It's about 100 pages long, but it's half of which is written in French and half of which is written in English. Right, so it's not that thick, Martin.
And it's just, it's a minefield.
Not really, Martin.
And in the heat of the moment, when Michael Massey, the race director, had to consider the safety of marshals, was the car
Yeah, those ones that were jumping over the barriers at the end of lap 56, yeah.
out of the way. He couldn't release the cars until he was, the lapped cars, until he was certain that the track was reasonably clear.
Not reasonably clear. The clerk of the course is responsible for declaring that track safe. He could only do so when he has performed his checks. He's ensured that those marshals aren't on the track, and he's satisfied the barriers are fit for purpose, and he's satisfied that the track surface is safe. Hence why that track was still yellow, well, until Lando Norris, on that release lap, where he shouldn't have been racing, was still racing and hadn't even got to turn 5, and the track was still yellow.
Although they, of course, have to proceed with caution anyway. And you know what? Even knowing who the lap cars are is not as straightforward as you might think.
Do you know that line that I told you? And I showed you just how straightforward it was to identify the lapped cars. And liar Martin Brundle tells you it's not easy to identify them.
Because you get a safety car situation and some cars pit, and that means they are then lapped, or the leader pits and unlaps some other cars. So it takes a certain amount of time to...
Just as I showed you at the Spanish Grand Prix, where Sainz unlapped himself and Albon got lapped. Was it easier to identify who the lapped cars were, Martin? Oh yeah, the one behind Hamilton, the leader, is now Albon. Oh, that means he's now lapped. Oh, Sainz is in front of the leader. He's not lapped. But it's not as easy as you might think, says Martin.
Work out exactly who the lap runners are, where they are in the pack, but the fundamental point of that rule is to make sure that they don't get in the way of a great duel towards the...
The fundamental purpose of that regulation is that they don't get in the way of a great duel in a Grand Prix. Now, there's no such thing as a great duel, okay? A Grand Prix is contested between all of the competitors. Every competitor is racing. Third is wanting to challenge for second and then maybe challenge for first. You blocked him off. You left 2 lapped cars in his way. You prevented Daniel Ricciardo, who was in 12th, who had also changed onto fresh soft compound tyres, from being directly behind 11th and 10th, who weren't on fresh soft compound tyres, with Daniel Ricciardo then not having the opportunity to challenge for a top 10. The reality is nobody would have had the opportunity because the race would have finished behind the safety car. Nobody has the opportunity to overtake. All they did is they broke the rules to set it up for one person to overcome Lewis Hamilton. That is what this show did, to excite the kiddies, to create drama fraudulently and deny Lewis Hamilton his record-breaking 8th World Championship. That is what this fraudulent show did, and this is the face of the fraud.
The end of a Grand Prix, and that certainly happened, didn't it?
It certainly did. You mentioned there about kind of the legal battles and such. Like, how sad would you...
Yes, legal, everybody, legal. You wouldn't understand. All that you know about legal is it involves lawyers, people in wigs and capes, and judges, and it costs lots of money and takes many years. Legal. Don't you worry about that.
...be to see this all decided at some point in a courtroom?
Let me just fast forward the adverts. How disappointed would you be to see this decided in a courtroom, Martin?
It would be terribly sad, and I can't really see where it can go, if I'm honest, because, you know, what's the remedy? You know, for example...
Simple remedy, Martin. The last valid lap of this race was lap 56. Okay, Lewis Hamilton was leading then. On lap 57, the race director broke the rules of the sport, okay? Broke the rules of the sport by selecting 5 cars to unlap not the 8 that were eligible, and then immediately ordered the safety car in. That is a breach of the rules and regulations done on lap 57, rendering that lap and anything that took place beyond that to be invalid. So the only solution here is to declare that race result as the running order at the end of lap 56. That's the remedy, Martin. Otherwise, what you're doing, you're maintaining something that was fraudulently contrived. But you like that, don't you, Martin? Because you're paid to validate that, aren't you, Martin?
Red Bull didn't do anything wrong. There are no misdemeanors on their part.
Red Bull did nothing wrong. They just played some clever cards. Red Bull had nothing to lose, says Martin. Red Bull did nothing wrong. Yes, condition the minds of the kiddies. Red Bull did nothing wrong. They just had some help from the racing gods, just as Christian had hoped for.
Or Carlos Sainz coming in third for Ferrari, for example. Yuki Tsunoda.
Carlos Sainz did nothing wrong in third. No, it's nothing to do with that. Carlos Sainz was denied the opportunity of challenging for second and third. In fact, no, he wouldn't have had that anyway because it was a safety car finish. Nobody has the opportunity.
But AlphaTauri, how are you going to unravel all of that?
I've just told you, Martin.
You can't just suddenly count back a lap.
Yes, you can.
Because I don't think there's any precedent or
yes, there is
regulation to suggest that. What should have happened is we should have had a red flag.
No, Martin. These incidents are dealt with using a safety car, and we have safety car finishes. What should have happened, it should have been a safety car finish, and Lewis Hamilton will be a record-breaking 8-time world champion. This is the face that they put in front of the world to validate what happened.
So that then the mess could get cleared away of the accident. Drivers could then choose their tyres, and there would have been a 3-lap shootout towards the end.
He likes the idea of a shootout, doesn't he?
Strictly speaking,
that excites the kiddies.
The regulations suggest that this.
Strictly speaking, the regulations suggest. You see, the regulations, Martin, aren't a suggestions box. They're not there to suggest, oh, perhaps you could do this. Perhaps you could do that. No, they are a set of instructions that have to be carried out if you deploy the safety car. These are the instructions that accompany the deployment of that safety car. They're not a set of suggestions. If you deploy the safety car, we suggest that you do this with it. They're not that, Martin. They're regulations.
Safety car should have completed the next lap, and in fact the regulations do allow for if it could.
The regulations allow for, do they, Martin? So what you're actually saying in a roundabout way is it should have been a safety car finish, Martin, and therefore Lewis Hamilton would be a record-breaking 8-time world champion. Absolutely right there, Martin. You can't talk straight, can you, Martin? Because you're paid to lie to the world, to validate the fraud that you actually commentated on. You narrated real time. This is why Kim Kardashian ignored you, because you narrated the fraud, Martin. You're a fraudster. Jail time for you, Martin.
Strictly speaking, the regulations suggest that the safety car should have completed the next lap. And in fact, the regulations do allow for if it's going to be a safety car finish. In other words, an accident just cannot be cleared away in time. The safety car pulls in.
I've proven that it couldn't. There were still marshals on the track at the end of lap 56, and there's no way that those 8 cars could be released prior to the end of lap 56. That dictates that it's a safety car finish. That dictates that, providing he kept it on the track, Lewis Hamilton is a record-breaking 8-time world champion. Why can't you say that, Martin?
The pits, there can be no overtaking, so the glorious shot for the world to see on the TV and the photographers is not of a safety car with its lights blaring away with the winner behind it, but a racing car and a racing driver. So all sorts of provisions in there. As I say, we ended up with a bit of a hybrid of all that.
A hybrid solution. I suppose that's the compromise the race director is making here. So what do Red Bull want? Do they want the chance or do they not? A hybrid solution. Highly complex, compressed moment. Regulations, tripping over themselves. This is the experts of the sport explaining to you.
And you can look at it and argue that it played so heavily in.
You can argue. Let us know what your argument is in the comments section, says Martin.
to Red Bull's hands at that point that it was unfair. But then Red Bull,
you could argue it was unfair, says Martin,
played some clever cards.
Red Bull were playing some clever cards. They should have been focusing on the rules and regulations of the sport rather than playing cards. Whose yacht were they playing the cards on, and which game of cards did they win, which then resulted in contriving the outcome of the 2021 season championship? Who won that game of cards for the $177 million constructors prize? And what was the cleverness about those cars that meant that Red Bull ended up with the driver's title going to Max?
With their strategy, perhaps on the first virtual safety car, Mercedes-Benz were a little bit too cautious, leaving them 44 laps to go on a set of tyres.
Nothing to do with it. Lewis Hamilton was almost 12 seconds ahead with less than 5.5 laps to go prior to Nicholas Latifi crashing on purpose, creating that situation, the contrivance of trying to set up that last lap shootout. That was done by design. The reason they had to break the rules to make it happen was that his car caught fire. That prolonged the clear-up operation, meaning that in order to actually make it happen, they had to break the rules to make it happen, which is what they did. And this guy was narrating it to try and pacify the entire watching world, to make it sound believable, as they were breaking the rules to contrive it. That's what happened.
So, there was some clever strategy going on, but then
clever strategy.
Red Bull had nothing to lose.
Red Bull had nothing to lose again.
Hamilton had the speed and had the lead, and so Red Bull had plenty of space behind them and grabbed a couple of safety car stops. So that's the way the cookie crumbled.
Martin, there was loads of, let's call them new Formula One fans watching yesterday. Can you see the positive that, right?
Thanks for that, Rupert.
Right, they've had all that drama and we're still talking about it now, so maybe that keeps them interested. But the rules have been so complicated, a lot of people don't...
The rules are complicated, don't you worry your little heads. I mean, I can explain them to you, and I can explain their purpose. But Rupert here and Martin, the expert of the sport, the sports voice, the main go-to commentator for the last 28 years at that stage, he's 33 years now, he can't explain it to you. Funny that ever since, nobody's explained the regulations of the safety car correctly, have they? You've still never heard this in the 4.5 seasons since this took place. Why is that? It's because it was all a fraud.
Really understand still what actually happened yesterday. There is talk of court and such like, and those new fans might just think,
yes, there is talk of court. That's to come. Okay, there will be soon the sending to each of these teams the letter before action about what's going to take place. But don't you worry your little heads. The Supreme Court have already been informed about this, both in relation to this, in relation to Belgium, the Belgian parade fraud, and the fraud perpetrated by Bernie Ecclestone in relation to 2008 Crashgate, this fraudulent massa case that's going on at the moment, facilitated by the fraudulent British judiciary, Judge Jay, staging a fraudulent case where a fraudulent judge is actually representing the FIA, Ecclestone and Formula One, trying to absolve them of consequence for the fraud that they perpetrated back in 2008. So, this is what we're up against. A fraudulent system that protects the interests of wealth and power, which is the reason that the UK Serious Fraud Office refused to investigate the Abu Dhabi fraud that I reported to them and gave them the details of. Oh yes, we don't investigate that. 7 of the Formula One teams are based in the United Kingdom. That affects the economy. There are several billionaires of the UK, part of the establishment of the UK, that pull the strings of government in the UK to make policy in the UK for the benefit of the billionaire class. And we don't want to do anything that harms their wealth. That's not our job to do that. Our job is to protect their wealth and protect anybody from defrauding them. But they're allowed to defraud you. That's the way it works.
actually Formula One is so complicated, I've lost interest already?
I think we had over 9 million people.
Want to bet? Another advert. Wait there. We're back.
I think we had over 9 million people watch.
That's in the UK. Globally, it's reported there were 108.7 million people who were defrauded by the show of Formula One. Everybody involved. Formula One itself, which includes F1 TV, their broadcasters, all contracted broadcasters, because not a single commentary team in every single language that this is broadcasted in could identify the fraud. The FIA, which is the governing body of the sport, couldn't identify it. They actually sided with this fraudulent appeal of Red Bull, where Red Bull had no entitlement to be in that appeal. All teams were complicit, all drivers were complicit, and everybody is worth billions more. In the 2021 season, the stock value of Liberty Media increased by 4.8 billion over the course of that season, where they contrived the season to attract the kiddies by manufacturing the drama. And ever since, the audience has grown, and the value of each of those teams is now projected at being at least £1 billion, $1 billion, like there's more than $1 billion, more than what it was back then. Created via fraud, the proceeds of crime.
Watching it on TV yesterday, and the audiences are growing. Formula One's had an incredible year. It was a bit complicated,
but it was complicated. Don't you worry your little heads.
And incredibly controversial. But I don't think it'll put people off watching Formula One. I think it'll engage them more into it, if I'm honest. But we do need some clarity. But it's an incredibly fast moving,
yeah, it's just fast moving and complex. Don't you worry your little heads.
Complex, highly technical sport, and I'm afraid you can write another 100 pages of regulations, but
you don't need to, Martin. I've just explained that regulation, the relevant one, why it exists and why it wasn't applied properly, and the implications of that fixed the outcome of a race. That race, the only outcome was a safety car finish. Soon as that race got to the end of lap 56 and those lap cars were unable to be released, that demanded that race was a safety car finish. That meant that providing Lewis Hamilton kept his car on the road, he was the winner of that race and therefore record-breaking 8-time world champion. The sport, the governing body of the sport, broke its rules to manufacture a fake ending to that event, one that is not allowed to take place. It separated out just 2 cars in a multi-competitor event and set them off to race off for the win of the race and therefore the win of that championship, knowing that was illegal to do so and knowing full well that one of those competitors was massively advantaged over the other. That is a fraud. That is equating to race fixing. That is a crime. But you won't talk about it like that. Not a single person in any of the media has revealed that. But I have. But the mystery algorithm on the social media platforms doesn't want to show this to people. Funny that.
There will still be circumstances that are just not covered in it, and it's like in any, football, cricket, rugby, or whatever. There's at some point there's a judgment call by some.
You see, this is the expert of the sport, and he can't explain it. They can't speak straight, can they? Strange that.
Somebody. And I think I've said for years, for example, that lap runners should fall back to the pack and not have to go out front and get round again. It slows things down. As it happens, that would have cost Lewis Hamilton dearly back in Imola when he was.
So had the regulations been what you're proposing, which is not what they are, Martin, that would have, had they been that, but they're not, that would have impacted Lewis. This is what you did during the race, what Crofty did. Had that have happened, Hamilton would have lost the World Championship. Had the regulations been what I'm proposing, then that would have harmed Lewis Hamilton. No. See what you're doing there? You see, there's a reason that they're not what you're projecting, Martin, and that is, in this case, if you'd have made Lando Norris drop to the back of the pack, you're saying that from previously being 11.2 seconds behind Gasly, Nicholas Latifi crashes, and that now puts Lando a lap behind Gasly. No, you're not allowed to do that. But in the same breath, Max Verstappen closes up from being 11.9 seconds behind Hamilton to just half a second. No, that impacts different competitors differently. You can't have a set of regulations that do that. That's not sporting fairness, as dictated by the International Sporting Code. And you can't drop Lando Norris back and just pretend that, oh, he's actually on the same lap as Gasly, because he's done one lap less than Gasly now, because Gasly's disappeared off around the track, using a lap's worth of fuel in doing so. Lando Norris hasn't had to do that, using those tyres for an extra lap that Lando hasn't. That skews outcomes by doing it that way. Not a valid suggestion, Martin, but you keep lying to the kids, don't you, Martin?
Is recovering from an incident, and other drivers in the past. But, you know, the lap runners are lap. Let them just fall back through and put the leaders together like that and go racing again. So I think there are a number of solutions. Michael Massey is relatively new to it, the race director. Charlie Whiting.
That was the end of his third full season. He'd proven that he knows the rules and regulations. He'd kept that safety car on track for an additional lap beyond the mandatory one on 4 separate occasions. I've given you the example of the Spanish Grand Prix of 2019. The Brazilian Grand Prix of 2019, he did the same in keeping that safety car on track for an additional lap beyond the mandatory one. And in 2020, Sakir and Eiffel, he did the same. Every other time he deployed it when lap cars were in situ, he kept that safety car out on track for the mandatory lap. Except Abu Dhabi 2021. Oh, he made an error there. He didn't know. These regulations are tripping over themselves there at the last race of the last Grand Prix of the season, when the drivers are level on points, and we set it up for a last lap shootout between just 2 cars, which you're not allowed to do. And yet the governing body can't identify that. And everybody in the World Motorsport Council signs off that report and ratifies it. Funny that, isn't it, Martin?
Who wrote these regulations, knew them inside out, and was strong with teams. They feared him in terms of they didn't mess around with Charlie. And anybody who does this job needs to have that kind of control over very, very...
Yeah, they didn't mess around with Charlie, and therefore, unfortunately, Charlie died, didn't he? He died. Was it pulmonary embolism? Yeah, you can research what sort of things cause that. But yeah, Charlie died, so in gets put in the position Michael Massey. Perhaps Michael Massey is more malleable. So don't you worry, little heads, about, you know, if you're not malleable, you're dispensable, perhaps. I don't know. That's just, who knows? Who knows? It could have been a valid medical condition.
Competitive people on the pit wall. I personally do not like to hear teams working away on the...
So he gaslights the notion of part of the problem here being the teams trying to coerce the race director. Now, if we get to the end here, let's listen to Martin. Let's get rid of the advert first of all. This is how Martin signs off the end of the interview.
Either of them. You kind of want to give them both the World Championship, but you can't. And that's how it played out on Sunday. And I think it's time to move on now.
So the very next day, after the biggest sporting fraud in history, Martin is rolled out to convince the fans that it was just complex, highly technical, complex sport, fast moving, regulations there like this thick. Don't you worry, little heads. But I think it's time to move on now.
That's how it played out on Sunday, and I think it's time to move on now.
Having narrated the fix, having narrated the fraud.
That's how it played out on Sunday, and I think it's time to move on now. And
that's what he did. That's what he did. Now, not only did he do that one, they had to do it again because people were still kicking off about it. And so we get to a bit further on, the 9th of February 2022. So the 13th of December 2021, they then had to roll him out again on the 9th of February 2022, where he did the same. Where he'll state in this one that he knows an awful lot about it and it's super uncomfortable. And I'll just pause this. I'll get to that particular bit. I have been through this entire interview, and it's very similar to the one I've just showed you. But I'll just get to the particular bit before I resume this video. Actually, I'm going to show you this. We've got Tarquin here interviewing the juggler, Craig Slater. I'm playing this at double speed, and hopefully you can listen to what he's got to say.
We are still talking about what happened at the end of the 2021 season and that decider in the desert and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the drama of the last few laps and what happened with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And perhaps it would be inaccurate to say that new footage has emerged. The footage has been there, but a new story has emerged, hasn't it, Craig? Can you tell us more?
This is radio footage, radio traffic between the race director Michael Massey, or to put it more correctly, radio traffic from Red Bull to the race director Michael Massey. Principally,
if you cut this lad's hands off, I think he'd be mute. Take a look at Slater's hands.
What has been made a fuss about in the last couple of days, and you're right, it's not new, it's old. It's been in the public domain on YouTube since the 16th of December, so 4 days after the race, but one or two news outlets have taken hold of it, and one or two prominent individuals on social media as well, including Damon Hill. But what I think it seems to show, and we'll have a listen to it I think in a moment, is Michael Massey, rather than being race director, it sounds rather as though he is being directed in terms of what to do by the Red Bull pit wall. Perhaps we should have a quick listen to it now, and you can make your own judgment.
Obviously those lap cars, you don't need to let them go right the way around and catch up with the back of the pack. I'm just willing to let them go. And then we've got a motor race on our hands.
No, Mikey, no, Mikey, it was so not right. Mikey, what was that? Mikey, race control.
Go ahead, Jojo.
You need to reinstate the lap before, it's not right.
Jojo?
Yes.
It's called a motor race, okay?
Sorry?
We went car racing.
Okay, let's get the thoughts then of Martin Brundle on what we just heard there. As Craig has stated, this has been out there since mid-December, but it does sound like Michael Massey is being coerced by Rebel Racing over Team Radio. What's your read of that, and how does it in any way change the hue on this particular story about the ending of the 2021 season, Martin?
It's not new news, as Craig pointed out, and also I think you have to understand that it's not necessarily telling Michael Massey something he didn't already know. For example, on a wet day in Spa, you don't let the cars go all the way round and catch the pack up.
Bollocks, Martin. Okay, this gaslighting about the wet day in Spa narrative.
Crocodile, as I call it in commentary, and it's something I would have said on the day, I'm pretty sure, and I've said many times before. You know, it takes too long. It would take too long out of the race if you let them find their way, especially if there's still an incident on the racetrack when you release the lap car.
There's not an incident still on the racetrack. Okay, you don't release them until the clerk of the course has declared the track safe. That's the requirement.
At Monaco, they might catch the back of the pack or whatever.
They didn't.
So
because the race director didn't use his overriding authority, because ever since they perpetrated this fraud, they've had to cover it up.
Let's not assume it's giving Massey information he didn't already know in terms of what he could and couldn't do with the lap pack.
No, because he's proven what he already knew with his previous conduct.
Of course, it's really uncomfortable. A lot of people are unhappy, and Hamilton fans, Mercedes fans, and
if you're a fan of this guy, then you'll think this. If you're a fan of them, then you'll think that. No. These are the rules and regulations. This is what really happened. This is why it's wrong. Doesn't matter who you like or who you dislike. This is why it was wrong, Martin. But no, incite the fanboy, Martin.
You don't even have to be a Lewis Hamilton fan to think that forever he should be an 8-time world champion.
Absolutely right, Martin.
Because for me, the really crucial regulation that wasn't carried out is the safety car should have come in at the end of the following lap.
Absolutely right, Martin. For you, the crucial regulation is that the safety car should come in at the end of the following... You couldn't say that real time as you were narrating it, could you, Martin? The day after, you were saying that the regulations were a suggestion box. The regulations suggest that the safety car should have come in at the end of the following lap, and the regulations do allow for it to be a safety car finish. Remember that, Martin? But now, for you, the crucial regulation that wasn't followed is that it should have come in at the end of the following lap. You're able to say that now, aren't you, Martin?
Yeah, an 8-time world champion, because for me, the really crucial regulation...
For you? Why is it just for you? Is that not just how it actually is? We can omit the words "for you," Martin. It's not just an opinion, it's a fact.
That wasn't carried out is the safety car should have come in at the end of the following lap. But we also...
And that means that Lewis Hamilton is a record-breaking 8-time world champion. But we've caveated that with an excuse, haven't we, Martin, to validate it?
know there are unwritten rules and...
We also know that there's unwritten rules. What's an unwritten rule? Nothing. What's an unwritten rule, Martin? There's no such thing as an unwritten rule. The rules that everybody knows. What's an unwritten rule, Martin?
Meetings which shouldn't.
And there's meetings which... What meetings are these, Martin? Are these where people are contriving a fraud? Talk us through this, Martin.
Following lap. But we also know there are unwritten rules and meetings which should...
Where people are contriving.
Shouldn't supersede anything. Well, let's try not to have a race finishing under the safety car.
Irrelevant, Martin. There's been a meeting where let's try not to have a race finishing under the safety car. That doesn't excite the kiddies. Let's contrive the outcomes. No. That means, Red Bull played some clever cards in response to that, didn't they? Let's use this agreement we've got of everybody to contrive this. Let's do a deal, Toto. You get the $177 million. We get the spoils of a last lap shootout, which has incited the fanboys, which has attracted the kiddies to watch the show, which will be of benefit to us all. We also know of these meetings, dear Martin.
They're hugely unacceptable. I've met so many fans that were new to Formula One last year, in particular.
It's unacceptable, but you're willing to narrate it, Martin. You're willing to take the money and narrate it to be part of the fraud. You were willing to get down on your knees and serve, weren't you, Martin? But it's hugely unacceptable, isn't it, Martin? Absolutely right, Martin.
And fans in general that were hugely upset by what happened. We cannot, and we know that's going to change, we cannot have teams getting at the referee.
Let's put the focus on that again, Martin, rather than the fraudulent contrivance here.
While he's trying to make critical decisions with cars on the track and marshals and breakdown vehicles. The car was on fire at a certain time. He's trying to manage that.
No, the race director's not trying to manage that. The clerk of the course is responsible for overseeing the recovery of the car and ensuring that the track is made safe again. Once he's done that, he then radios back to race control and says, race control, the track is now safe. You now can carry out the procedure of the unlapping. So don't gaslight everybody again, Martin.
And he's getting lobbied left, right and centre. You can imagine that, can't you, on the football ground.
Again, the example he's going to bring is that these the managers on the side of the football pitch are shouting at the referee. Difference is race control's in an office and these are radio communications. And what the race director can do, he can just turn the radios off. He's also got 9 assistants sitting around him and he can delegate. Okay, if somebody wants to radio into this office, you speak to them. Okay. And if you feel that what they're saying has got any relevance to me, then you can transmit that to me. If it's not relevant, tell them to jog on.
Or the rugby ground is completely unacceptable. That will change. It's not pretty for Formula One at all. But I don't think this particular... It's come out today. It's come out just before the Red Bull launch as well.
Poor Red Bull. This information... Israel Verstappen and Israel Red Bull, the victims once again. It's just come out before the launch of their car, the news that Jonathan Wheatley, their team director, was coercing race control. Oh, that's a coincidence, and that's poor Red Bull.
But I don't think it changes the narrative, the really uncomfortable narrative of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, just to pick up on that, you're absolutely right, Martin.
Absolutely right, Martin. Absolutely right, Martin.
Michael Massey might not be told anything he doesn't already know, but so irrelevant in terms of whether a rule was broken or not, but is it relevant?
Irrelevant as to whether a rule was broken or not. The rule being broken or not is irrelevant. says the juggler.
In terms of judging him as the fit person to direct the race, and people are looking at the mirroring of the language, the fact that he uses motor race, that's what he tells Toto Wolff at the end of the Grand Prix, which is the exact term Jonathan Wheatley told him.
Is the mirroring of the language here the big problem, Martin? And is Michael Massey the fit person for this? Shall we just pin this all on race control? We won't investigate the crash as to how organic Nicholas Latifi's crash was, having been told it has to be this lap. We won't investigate those drivers who are saying, we need to earn lap before it's too late to get the job done. Fernando Alonso and Vettel, who are missed out on this recording, saying Michael's messing this up. What's he messing up, Sebastian? What do you know? Daniel Ricciardo, yeah, I'm glad I wasn't a part of that. Lance Stroll, yeah, man, what the... Yeah, we'll talk about it later, Lance. Stay quiet on the radio, lad. Stay quiet. Don't expose what we know.
Sort of quickly replying, understood when prompted, because ultimately, as well as not necessarily, it's already been decided that we're going to go with what happened in terms of what the FIA have looked at and the stewards in the immediate after.
The FIA have looked at it and they've decided it's okay. And the World Motorsport Council have agreed that it's okay. They haven't been able to identify all of the fraud involved. They haven't been able to identify the meaning of the regulations, the fact that the regulations were breached, and it changed the outcome of that event, which had to be a safety car finish, which had to be Lewis Hamilton therefore winning that race because he kept it on the track, proven by his conduct. And the fact is the rules were breached on lap 57, making lap 57 and lap 58 invalid. Therefore, you've got to count back to the end of lap 56 and declare the race result there. But they didn't do that. They declared the steward's appeal to be valid. That completely wasn't. They didn't identify the true implications of him not performing of him not being able to perform the unlapping procedure properly, not performing it properly, and not doing the additional lap as required. They didn't reveal the fact that those 5 cars that were released were in breach of the regulations by racing under yellow conditions. And yet the World Motorsport Council nodded their heads and said, oh yes, ratify that report. That report is proper, fit and proper to deal with that situation. All a fraud.
But they do have to make a decision about maybe Michael Massey being tough enough.
Just Michael Massey's fault, not 9 other people in race control at least, all sat behind monitors, all aware of the rules and regulations of the sport, all complicit with what was taking place. All of those team principals not contesting that result with the FIA, not contesting how they were impacted by it. No.
To handle those pressures and in a sense, is that a kind of character reference, or does it have some weight in making that call?
So this is Martin Brundle. What does he know?
I made a comment that changing Michael Massey won't fix the problem, meaning that it's way too big a job for one person.
Oh, it's too big. I mean, Charlie Whiting managed it, and more.
Especially in the 23 race season coming up. That doesn't mean to say that's in full support of Michael Massey. I think he'll struggle to keep that position. The trouble is, the spotlight will be on him. Every single decision will be analysed, and what happens if Lewis is up for a penalty? Will he be lenient on that?
Yeah, the problem with keeping Michael Massey is he might be lenient on Lewis Hamilton in the future, everybody.
I think he's in an untenable situation. Whether he's part of a much bigger and broader system going forward, that's what I'm expecting to hear next week from the FIA, that they're going to have a root and branch change and to make sure that, this can't happen again. They're hugely complex regulations.
It's complex again.
It's a fast-moving sport.
It's fast-moving.
Different circuits, different layouts, It's
different circuits, different layouts. It's complex. It's fast moving. Yeah. They're just motor racing circuits. The same rules apply at them all, Martin.
100 pages of sporting regulations, 100 odd pages of the
How thick is it, Martin? Show us.
sporting code, all sorts of technical directives and other agreements in place.
Are there agreements in place? What are they, Martin? How are we going to fix it? How are we going to manufacture the result at this one, Martin?
We ended up on version 13 of the sporting regulations last year. This year,
yeah, and they're all published in advance, and all the teams are aware of them and aware of any amendments, and therefore they're all aware in advance of what's happening, and they're available to the public should people be interested in finding out what they are. There was no amendment saying that all teams agreed for the rules being broken to manufacture a racing finish just between two competitors in a Grand Prix.
Ones are not really out properly yet. It's completely unacceptable for the fans, for us in the media, not really knowing what's going on with all these sub-meetings. So it needs clarity. It needs a much broader system to control what is a hugely complex and
it's complex
variable thing. Should he have thrown a red flag as soon as the car crashed? Yes.
No, because that's not what you do, Martin. There's conditions why you would throw a red flag and stop the race, and they are if the track is blocked and these cars can't pass the incident, you have to red flag it. If there is a driver in peril needing medical attention, you would not want racing cars passing that incident when somebody is fighting for their life and you've got a medical car trying to save their life. So you would red flag it to deal with a medical emergency of either a driver or a marshal or anybody in that vicinity. And the other thing that you would red flag it for is if the incident was such that the length of time of a clear-up operation was going to be well over and above the standard kind of clear-up procedure, which I've already stated is on average 5.5 laps, such as the crash has caused serious damage to the barriers, which will require the barriers to be repaired, which will take 15 minutes and take a further 5 or 6 laps out of that race, beyond the 5 or 6 which is normally deemed to be acceptable, then you would red flag it to prevent that amount of time being wasted effectively from the race. But these incidents, which take on average 5.5, 5, 6 laps of racing out of that race to deal with, they get dealt with under safety car. So don't project that they should have thrown a red flag, because that's not how you deal with such an incident.
It would have been better than we'd had a fair fight at the end of the Grand Prix. But does that mean then every time you get towards the end of a Grand Prix, if there's an incident, you must throw a red flag? That's an uncomfortable precedent.
Well, it is, isn't it? Because then teams might use that as a manipulation tactic. Oh, we're not winning this Grand Prix. We'll get our second driver to crash so that we get red flags. That means we get a restart right behind the leader and we can challenge then on the restart. Or we get somebody in one of the teams that we supply an engine to, or our B team, to crash, and we give ourselves another opportunity. That's open to manipulation, isn't it, Martin?
To put in place. So it's not straightforward. I know.
This is what Martin knows, okay? This is what Martin Brundle knows.
Precedent to put in place. So it's not straightforward. I know an awful lot of things that were going on around and about it.
Martin knows an awful lot of things that were going on around and about it. He's just admitted that. He knows what was going on. Well, he was narrating the fraud.
Not straightforward. I know an awful lot of things that were going on around and about it, and it is super uncomfortable for Formula One, but you can't unravel the result.
You can unravel the result, Martin, as has just been demonstrated with the Monaco Grand Prix, with Pierre Gasly having his penalties, which were wrongly applied, removed, and therefore elevating his position back up to third. What they've not done is remove the other wrongfully applied penalties to Piastri and George Russell and amended their positions, which would actually mean that Gasly is not third, which is again another fuck up by this show.
Red Bull did nothing wrong.
Red Bull did nothing wrong, everybody. Red Bull did nothing. He's on the payroll.
Ferrari did nothing wrong in third place.
Ferrari did nothing wrong in third place, but didn't appeal to the FIA that actually you've restarted this race, giving Max Verstappen the opportunity to challenge for first, but you've blocked us in third off from challenging second place or first place. That's not allowed. No, they just stayed quiet, didn't they? McLaren did nothing wrong. McLaren, their driver Lando Norris in 7th, wasn't allowed to challenge for 6th because he was left 2/3 of a lap behind Gasly when previously he was closer to Gasly than Verstappen was to Hamilton. Their other driver, Daniel Ricciardo, was not allowed to challenge for a top 10 position. None of them should have been challenging for anything. It's a safety car finish. But this illegal restart that none of them should have had impacted these drivers, and yet these teams stayed silent.
Breaks up. You can't penalise them because they did nothing wrong. The FIA can only penalise themselves. They got it wrong.
The judges can only judge themselves wrong, and the judges don't judge themselves wrong.
On the day, Michael Massey got it wrong due to
Is it just that the judge judged himself wrong, or is it that Nicholas Latifi crashed his car? Martin Brundle said straight away there's bound to be a couple of racing laps when the statistics wouldn't indicate that. Martin Brundle then lied about the regulations of the sport, telling everybody, will they do this regulation? Will they not? Will they let the lap runners through? And if they do, how long will they wait? I think the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap, and there will be one racing on lap 57, Martin. That's not the regulation. Why are you priming the global audience that there's going to be a racing lap when the regulations would state that that's not possible? Why would you be doing that, Martin? Why would you be priming the global audience for a racing lap when the regulations state that that's not allowed?
You can't penalise them because they did nothing wrong.
It's because
there were an awful lot of things that were going on around and about it.
It's because you know an awful lot of things about it, don't you, Martin? Yes, you do, because you're part of the fraud.
And it is super uncomfortable for Formula One, but you know, you can't unravel the result.
What's going to be super uncomfortable is when you go to prison. That could be super uncomfortable for you, Martin.
Red Bull did nothing wrong. Ferrari did nothing wrong in third place, for example. You can't penalise them because they did nothing wrong. The FIA.
There might be two lads in there with a pair of pliers and a blowtorch.
They can only penalise themselves. They got it wrong on the day. Michael Massey got it wrong due to, I think, a lot of circumstances. But it doesn't mean you can't unravel the race from that point when the organiser got it wrong themselves.
As Martin says, the result won't change. The FIA will present the findings of their investigation to the teams at the FIA Commission on Monday, the 14th of this month. Next Monday, it's going to be the most leaked meeting in FIA Commission history. They will also outline, as I understand it, a new structure for race direction, which will be a kind of consulship. There'll be two individuals rather than one doing Michael Massey's job. And I have to say, in the various conversations I've had behind the scenes, Michael Massey's name has not been included on those they think will occupy the key positions in that new race directing structure.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tarquin. Anyway, this video started off, let me just come out of this, and it started off talking about the reason why Kim Kardashian, on this video here, ignored this fraud, Martin Brundle. That's why. Because Martin Brundle was part of defrauding the world, which denied her boyfriend, Lewis Hamilton, of his record-breaking 8th world title. This was a global fraud. The world has been lied to. The vast majority of the 108.7 million people that were the live viewers of that event were all defrauded and do not know what I've just explained. You will not find another video on either YouTube or on any form of media explaining the safety car regulations in the manner that I just have. They can't explain them. Go search. Go search for the Formula One safety car regulations, what needs to happen and what is their purpose. And these YouTube channels with 1 million subscribers can't tell you the truth. No, but they'll get their incentives from the show, you see. And those that do tell the truth, such as myself, and I've not found any other channel that's able to do so, but those that do tell the truth, they get suppressed. The mystery formula, which determines whether you get to see the video or not, it won't show you this. There's over 500 million fans of Formula One, supposedly. How many of those 500 million understand the sport? It's not that highly complex technical, is it? Having watched this, you should be able to understand what should have taken place, because it's not that difficult. And yet the presented expert, Martin Brundle, the man doing his grid walk, the man that she has just ignored, is the face of the fraud. He is the key figure that defrauded the English-speaking global population about the fraud that they perpetrated in contriving the 2021 season and denying Sir Lewis Hamilton, of his record-breaking 8th World Championship. And there will be a time where this will come out. And I'm just doing my best to make that happen. What my role ultimately will be in it, who knows? Obviously, nobody at their level is going to want to allow me to be the person that exposes their crimes, their corruption, which makes my life endangered by that. They're clearly not going to want to lose the billions that they've fraudulently gained. So they'll do what they can to protect that. They'll do what they can to protect their image, the brand of their show, and to silence anybody that's exposing it for what it truly is. But we'll see. Sadly, none of them have any integrity. None of them have exposed this themselves. They've all been complicit with it. So it falls on just ordinary people, ordinary civilians such as myself, to expose the truth. I will get labelled conspiracy theorist. Well, take a look at what you've just seen. Did that happen? Well, it happened because that's the evidence of it actually happening. That actually took place. And all I've done is broken that down and explain the true reality of what is taking place. But you won't have heard that in any form of media. What you will have heard is controversial, confusing, human error, confusion over the rules that seem to be tripping over themselves. All bullshit. You've heard the bullshit narrative that has been fed to the world to cover up a global contrivance. There is more to it, but that would take another couple of hours. If you've got to the end, thank you for your time. If you are only hearing this because you clicked on it because it involved Kim Kardashian, and if you are somebody that subscribes to a social media channel that posts a lot about Kim because that's all they care about, then please try to ensure that they get hold of this and get to produce something from this which can inform people in a more engaging manner than what I can. I'll explain the facts, but it takes a long period of time to expose the true reality of this. It is multifaceted, and in order to demonstrate that, it takes time, and a lot of people won't take the time and effort to sit through however long this style of presentation is. Plus, it's not done in a glossy, glitzy manner that many of these media presentations are these times, and hence people will see it as being a cheap thing that they're not willing to spend the time on watching. But that's the truth. That's what it is. They defrauded us all. They contrived the outcome of the 2021 season. And Lewis Hamilton was the victim of that. They deprived him of breaking the all-time record in the sport with their fraudulent contrivance. Martin Brundle was a key component of that, narrating that fraud, conditioning the minds of the global audience real time as it was happening, that it was even possible to happen like that, ahead of it happening, suggesting that it was possible for that sort of thing to happen before the so-called error even took place. Every single element of it was wrong. Every report done about it was wrong. That's what it is. And it's likely that Lewis has told Kim about Martin Brundle and what he truly is. Hence, that's why she did what she did. And yet all you'll hear about it in the media is, oh, she was wrong. She was rude to Martin. Kim was rude to Martin. Isn't she a bad person for being rude to Martin? Who does she think she is for being rude to Martin? Martin is Formula One royalty. Who does she think she is? That's the way the media will portray this. But that is why she was rude to Martin. Thanks for your time. And like I say, please, if you can, share it. Pass this on to all the kind of social media that talks about Kim Kardashian, so that they get a true understanding of her conduct at Monaco 2026. Why it is that she would have refused to speak to Martin Brundle. That's important you do so. The more people that are exposed to what the reality of the situation is, the greater the awareness, the greater the impact that we've got of making and changing things. Thank you for your time.